What's up, everybody? Happy Friday the 13th. Holy shit. That means everything's going wrong tonight. Everything. But it doesn't matter because I have alcohol. All right. So we do have a guest tonight, and I'm anxious to get to her and talk about the topic we have tonight. But of course, we have to go through the rules. First, I want to say hi to everybody, though. John, what's up, John? Donna's in the house. Producer Donna is off to the side here.
Woohoo!
Wave, Donna. Wave.
Hi.
There it is.
Hi.
That way. There she is. All right, we got John without an H. We got Bob, Diane, Stacy, Tommy, Cindy, Lee. What's up? All right, Barry, JD. What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing good. So let me get the rules up here so we can get through them. There we go. Rule number 1 is you can ask any little paranormal question your little heart desires. Anything. Doesn't matter. I'll give you my opinion. The guest tonight will give you her opinion, and I'm sure she will because she loves giving her opinion. We may not know the answer, which is related to number 2, rule number 2 here. But if we don't know the answer, we'll tell you we don't know, or we'll look it up, or we'll try to give you something, some direction to go with this. Rule number 3 is listen to Patrick Swayze. Be nice. This is a show about conversation, discussion, debate. You're free to ask questions. You're free to disagree with myself, the guest, or other guests, or other people. What are you laughing at? Are we getting comments already?
Look at
Bob.
Bob's.
Bob. Where's Bob's comment? All my favorite people are here.
No, keep going down. All the way
Please
down.
call her by correct name, Producer Divine. Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah, if you're out of line, if you go the route where you start calling names and being just, if you're a dick, then Donna has the power to boot your ass, and you will be booted. You'll be number 4, I think. I think we're up to number 4.
It sounds like this.
Oh, and then she accidentally booted somebody. No. So rule number 4 is if you have a question, please do us a favor, put a Q in front of your comment. That way it's much easier for us to pick up the questions and get to as many as possible. And then rule number 5, which is my favorite rule, drink up. What are you drinking? I got some rum. So with that out of the way, I am going to go over. Oh, there's Donna's ecto glass. I'm going to put up my special guest frame. Boom, like that. And I'm going to bring in my good friend, Mellanie. What's up, Mel?
What's up, Candy Biddle?
What's up? How you
And
doing?
guess what? This topic made me bust out an alcoholic beverage, however light it may be.
Yes.
For the people that don't know, I'm not a drinker.
No.
But this topic?
Oh.
Start early.
Wow. You know, like we have stories of you not drinking, but going to a certain.
Let me tell you
roast.
something, okay? Moonshine,
And vodka slushies.
not a good mix. With someone who does not drink, it does things to you, a natural thing.
We have video of that too. It's crazy.
Yes, not my best moments, but fun.
But
I
fun.
would argue the other way.
I think it's fun.
I think we had a lot of fun, and
We
it
had
was
tons
great.
of fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
we had good fun. So tonight we are talking about a topic that I've been asked about dozens and dozens of times, and I've just I didn't know anything about it. You know, I know a little bit about it, but I didn't know much about it. And we're going to talk about Bob Lazar.
This asshole.
Wow, right out of the gate. I love it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get into his background. We're going to get into his claims. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. And I want to say that, yeah, this has actually been fun because this past week I've dived into it because you did a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell us about that?
So Military Veterans Paranormal, we just started to do a podcast. A dear friend of ours has, some serious health issues, and he's got a lot to share. So we decided, let's just do this podcast together, but let's do something a little different from what we normally do. And we chose ufology. And then, the Netflix series came out about Lazar, and it doesn't matter who you talk to, somebody will always ask, well, what do you think about Bob Lazar, especially after this whole Netflix thing? So
is that the documentary?
Okay.
Documentary.
Okay.
Yes. The documentary.
Documentary.
Okay.
Yes. And so, you know me, I'm kind of nosy and I don't like to take what other people say as truths. So I look for documents. Documentation does not lie. So I started doing digging. And then the way I do my research is I look for little nuggets. And the more nuggets, no, it's not a series, it's an actual documentary, but they took it down. You can rent it now, I think. So I will look for little nuggets and I pay attention to what people say and I'll write it down. And then I'll go back and I'll listen to other interviews that this person has given and transcripts and start digging from there. And the more I started digging, the angrier I became. Not just only at Bob Lazar, but the people that are pushing him as truth. There's this conspiracy. And I think what's happened is there's a lot of actual documentation to say, I smell bullshit. But people aren't putting that together.
Right.
So they'll just say, hey, it's a little turd, but it's not a big deal. But then when you have little turds and you start putting all those turds in a pile, you get a mound of bullshit. And that's what happened.
I love that analogy. That's great.
Little turds make a mound.
So just in case someone doesn't know Bob Lazar or know who he is a guy that came out in 1989, I believe, and made claims that in 1982 he was working for a secret facility called S4, and he was reverse engineering alien spacecraft. That he was called in as a physicist to work on this stuff. Wow, this brings back memories of something that I'm sure we're going to get into. But so he claimed to be a physicist. He claimed to have worked at this facility. He claimed to have worked on alien technology, and even came up. He claims to have predicted element 115, which he
claims to have actually been the one to name it and truly discover it.
Okay, so lots of big claims, and he has become a celebrity in the UFO community. Basically. Yeah. And this was a time, and I'm sure we'll get into it. And there's no format here; we can go whatever direction we want to go. But I want to remind people that this was 1989 when these claims came out. This was before the internet was publicly available.
To his dismay.
Yes. So you cannot easily look this stuff up. Today, I can sit here, and I actually did it today, where someone I had no idea who they were, where they were in the world. Within 10 minutes, I was able to locate exactly where they were and get all kinds of records on them, doing a background search. But back then, not something you do. This was months and years of research in order to do something.
And not everything, when you're doing research, whether it's ufology or paranormal claims or things, Kenny knows me very well, and he knows I don't just go by what's on the internet. I go into databases that I'm very fortunate to have access to. I go to libraries. I make phone calls to universities, and I will look at their yearbooks. So yeah, there's that. So when you're listening to our podcast episode on Bob Lazar, you hear me start getting a little pissed.
Irritated? I can hear it.
Yeah, you because when somebody will mention something to me, it's things that I have seen and heard about him where people are trying to promote him, and you'll hear me, oh, you want to get into that one? All right, let's go. Because it's like the same things over and over and over. And so I'm very much like you, Kenny, where, okay, if you're going to make these claims, I'm going to look at the claims, but I'm also going to look at the foundation of which all of this stuff is built. Right. Because if you don't have a solid foundation, the rest of everything you try to build on it is going to crumble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could listening to your podcast, and definitely go listen to it. Military Veterans Paranormal. Check it out. It's on Spotify and a couple other podcast outlets. So check it out, because I could, and again, yes, I do know you, so I could see your face. Like, even before you said something, somebody else on the podcast would say something, and I'm like, oh, I can see her face. Like, oh, you want to talk about that shit? Yo, it's on. I can see, and then your face, your voice would come on, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what. You know how like you don't know what a radio DJ or something looks like until you see them.
Yeah,
I knew exactly where your eyes were looking. You're scrunching up, and you're like, oh yeah. So
yeah.
all right, let's get into this. So, should we start from the beginning? So we start with his background.
Yes, let's talk about Pimp Daddy Bob.
Let's. Oh, that's gonna be fun! I can't wait to get to that part. So his claims are there's a few. Like he's got a master. He's got 2 master's degrees. One from MIT, one from Caltech.
Correct. That's what he claims.
That's what he claims.
He didn't. And so again, let me reiterate. Sure. What I did was I listened to the majority of his interviews, but then I also read the interviews and I watched the interviews from when he initially started. Then I went and I listened to I read the entire transcript of the conference that was held in Rachel, Nevada, May 1st, 1993, because he kind of starts digging himself in a hole there. And then, I mean, I was listening to his interviews from 89 and 93 and going back. So that's when I started noticing, well, that's not what you said. And well, why didn't you mention this? So he claims to have, Bob Lazar. So he graduated from high school in let me double check, because I don't want to give anybody a false information, but like in the 1976, I believe. Yeah, 1976. Yes. But when he graduated, you guys, he didn't graduate in May or June. He graduated in August of 1976. Now, here's the thing with that. That means that he didn't graduate with his class. He had to complete summer school. And then he was 261 out of 369.
Yeah.
That put him at the bottom 10% of his class. So from there, he claims to have gone to Pierce College. And he said he was, just to take some classes there. And then in some interviews, he said he went to Cal State Northridge to take a few courses. And then he went to MIT and then Caltech. Other interviews, he says Caltech, then MIT. Then he'll say he went to, he never really mentions his bachelor's degree. Now, I have my master's. Call me crazy, but before you can get into a master's program, normally you have to have a bachelor's degree. But okay. So the crazy thing is that Cal State Northridge, which is about a little over an hour from here, it is a state university. It's not somewhere where even in the 70s you can just, la-di-da-di like a junior college and take a few courses and call it a day. You got to do this thing called apply. And there's an application process. There's an admittance process and things like that. But he didn't graduate from there. How do you get to Caltech or MIT without first obtaining your bachelor's? Not to mention, he's talking Caltech and MIT, but he was in the bottom 10% of his class.
Yeah, that ain't working.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, and my understanding is you have to be in the top 10%.
Absolutely.
The top 10% to even be considered.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so then, but you see, he did this thing. It's called file for bankruptcy. And when you file for bankruptcy, you list where you live, all the places that you have lived along with your debts. And for some reason, when he listed the places that all of his residencies, None of them were in Massachusetts. Now, MIT and Caltech are just like any other master's program. It requires at least 1 year. 1 year residency, 1 year full attendance, full course load. So how then can you only live in California or Nevada and never live in Massachusetts and get a master's degree?
So again, this is pre-internet days.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just do online courses.
There's one more little glitch here. So when he was at his pre-sentencing hearing for his felony pandering charge, he was a pimp. We'll get there. But he stated that he went to Pacifica University, and he put Correspondence University. Now, back in the day, you could do coursework via paper and file it back, but not from actual universities. And I've seen a lot that there was no record of Pacifica University, and that's actually not true. There was a Pacifica University. It was the state of California shut it down because they were known to mail out phony diplomas.
So it was a pre-internet diploma mill.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So what I did was I took the timeline of all the places where he lived. I took the timeline of when he was at these different schools, and it didn't match up. And then you start doing some more digging. MIT, and Kenya, you saw some of the documents. I posted up on our Facebook page too, documentation of these schools saying, no, this didn't happen.
Right.
Well, he did claim that one of his professors at, I believe he said Caltech, was a Mr. Duxler or Dr. whatever have you. And there was none. That was actually one of the teachers that he had at Pierce College, who taught math and physics, and said that Lazar took one of his courses. And then he said he had another professor at MIT, a Dr. Hosefield. And the crazy thing is if you go to Bob Lazar's high school yearbook, there's a Hosefield. Yes, he's down there. The one with like the really bad hair, right there. Yep, the one whose hair looks like a helmet with like straps on the side. He was never a professor at MIT, and MIT never had a professor named Hosefield. So how do you have, and that's not a normal name. So you can put, 1 + 1 = 2. So that didn't make sense either. So all of these little nuggets leads me to believe he's full of more shit than an outhouse when it comes to his education. He said he has 2 master's degrees, one in physics, one in electronics, and this, what was it? This was on the Billy Goodman Happening radio program show. He did a radio show December 20th, 1989. And he told him that I have 2 master's degrees, one in physics, one in electronics. I wrote my thesis on MHD, which is magnetohydrodynamics. Okay. So according to MIT, there is no record of him anywhere, not on any of the master's programs courses, not on the graduate student list, not anywhere in any courses, no registration, not in any yearbooks, but also they don't offer that.
Yes.
Not an offered degree. The same thing goes for Caltech. No record anywhere, and they don't offer, nor had they ever offered a degree in, and he said electronic technology in 4 different interviews. So then it's like, okay.
That's usually a trade school, isn't it? Electronics?
You can, electrical engineering, you can get things like that. But the crazy thing is that he can't produce not one book, He doesn't know one classmate by name. He said that he told Jeremy Corbell, well, I had people drop me off. Well, lottie fucking da, that doesn't mean shit. He said he doesn't know any of the names of the buildings on the campus.
Right.
He doesn't have any degrees, no transcripts to show. And then the weirdest part, if you have higher education, whether it is a bachelor's or master's, you will know when you graduate. If you graduate from Caltech or MIT, you're definitely gonna know when you graduate. And yet when he was always asked, when did you graduate? When did you earn your master's? Oh, I don't know, maybe 82, 83. What do you mean? You don't know? How do you not know? Because a master's is extremely intensive. He said he wrote his thesis on something, which means he had to defend it. And he couldn't recall who his advisor was, who his board was.
Nothing. And you get a diploma. You get a diploma.
Right.
Every time you successfully complete even just a course, you usually get some kind of certificate.
Or you can at least name the course.
And the school would have that record.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying, even in addition to the school, they should have a record of it, but you should have a record of it, a physical copy of it.
Oh, yeah.
So he should be able to produce that, but he never does.
Here's a question about.
And I also want to say, just for just generally over the entire show, I keep looking down because everything that Mellanie went over, like I have all the notes, I have the documents she sent me, and I've spent this last week going over and verifying them myself. So I'm basically checking them off because I have nothing to counter. I'm just going along with it because it all checks out. So JD has a question. What about the hydromagnetic whatever he allegedly based his thesis on? Is that a real topic?
Yeah, it's from what I understand, and I did share it because look, I'm not a sciencey person when it comes to things like that. It is magnetohydrodynamics. They had never heard of that. That's so. I mean, I'm sure it probably does in some way, sciencey way or another, but MIT has no record of that. And I even shared with Kenny physicists who are saying from the various departments at MIT, no, we don't offer that. And no one has ever submitted a thesis on that. If you submitted a thesis on that, when it comes to defending, I'm sure the entire physics department would probably be there.
Right.
Nailing you with questions. So when I say that they didn't know about it or it doesn't exist, I mean in terms of the thesis, the subject, the class on that at MIT where he claims. Now, as far as it being an actual real thing, shit if I know.
Yeah, you dug up letters from the AVCO Research Laboratory in Massachusetts. You also have a letter from the Montana Energy Research and Development Institute, who was associated with these records, all saying no. Never heard of him, never had any paper or no thesis from him. So, yeah, nothing. Wow, this really reminds me of somebody.
You know what? I'll say it. I call him Roundtree-esque.
Yes. Yeah, it really does. It stinks and reeks of maybe this is how Roundtree figured out what to do.
Yeah, because, and everybody's like, look, he didn't want his identity out. He's shy. He wants to get away from this and that. No. If you look at the various things that have been written about him before the Netflix documentary,
right?
He was popping up in newspaper clippings here and there. He wants to be relevant, and he wanted to be relevant way back when it was a lot more difficult to do fact checking.
So let me get this down off of you, but this is one of the first. This is him on a bicycle where he attached a kit jet engine.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in 1977. So he
Mm.
appeared in the newspaper, and this was I think the first time that he appeared, right?
Yeah.
And then there were other times.
Oh yeah.
Let's. I don't want to. Hold on there. Hold on. Let me get out of this and find the other one because there's a one with the. Oh, it's in the beginning, I think. Here it is. Yeah.
The hot rod one.
There we go. The hot rod. So
This
his Honda
is
Civic.
insane because from this article, Los Alamos also did a huge piece on him because he said he had this jet engine that he put in there, and this engine could generate like 700 horsepower or whatever. And the crazy thing that I found was I found the model or the company that does it or that built that engine, and they never even had that model. They didn't have anything that would produce that. In fact, they said if he had produced something of that magnitude, it would have caused his car to explode.
So yeah, the numbers I have here, in the article that was in this article that you're seeing on screen, it says the jet is capable of putting out 1,600 pounds of thrust, although it has been cut back to 800 pounds for various reasons. And again, I looked at what you had. I went through, found it myself. Yes, it's the company that made the engines, and this is one of the printouts for it. That's actually a bigger engine than what he has on the bike. I think this is near what he has in the car. Like the picture here is horrible, but that's the best I could find. I couldn't actually find a good copy of that. But even this doesn't put out anywhere near that kind of thrust. It actually puts out between like 350 to max out 700, and that was years later. So this is an embellishment by itself.
Absolutely.
So he started young.
He started young.
I think he got a taste for it, and this is just my opinion, and he liked it. Because if you look at Bob Lazar, he's a goober.
Yes. Yeah.
He is not the kind of kid that would walk down be popular in high school. He was a nerd. And I think he got this little taste of Nerdville fame, and he was like, oh yes, I've got something. And then it just kind of snowballed. And that's why I say he's very Roundtree-esque. I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm just saying he didn't go to MIT. He didn't go to Caltech. I don't believe he went to Cal State Northridge. I think he knows just enough to bamboozle people like myself who don't know physics or quantum mechanics or whatever have you. But when he's looked at and reviewed and tries to converse with actual scientists and actual engineers, it's, because you don't know shit, dude. Right. He was like the pre-Roundtree when Roundtree was plagiarizing Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That's what he was. Because Lazar claimed, like, one of the things that he said was he created a particle accelerator and he had it in his bedroom. Okay, one, if that's true, nerd. Two,
sounds like Sheldon Cooper.
Right? Because Sheldon Cooper was cool. So the crazy thing is that he made it out like this was an original thing, but it was in a 1960s Scientific American article on how to build an atom smasher, aka particle accelerator. It gives the diagram. It's a how-to. And he never mentioned that. He never stated where he got it. He hinted and alluded to, oh yeah, I'm the kind of guy, I have a particle accelerator in my bedroom. Bob.
Hold on a second. There we go. And it's coming up. So there's the document for the Atom Smasher. And this is the article in Popular Mechanics or Popular Science.
No, this is the one that was in Scientific American in the 1960s.
And it tells you how to do it, and there's diagrams.
And yes, that does look like a penis.
Yeah, there it is. And that's the setup that he had in his backyard during the news coverage. So this was all there. It tells you how to do it. If you had, and he does have electronics background, so he has something.
He took some courses, yes. So he had some, yeah. Because in his bankruptcy proceedings and even in his marriage license, he did put, that was another crazy thing. On his own marriage license to his first wife, Carol, they were both electricians. And he put his highest education grade 12. Well, what happened to Caltech?
Right?
Right.
MIT.
So let me see here. And I have that document too. So that's up. I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, my bad. But
there you go. I can get a little bit bigger. That's what she said. But yeah, they. Let me see here. So right here, electronics engineer, where you see my cursor going back and forth. That's for Bob, and his wife Carol at the time was an electronics technician. That's what they were listed as, and the highest grade right here, 12, for both of them. So yeah, they and that seems odd because he should have been able to list some master degrees, all this stuff. So, but he didn't. So
he does have a history of embellishment, but he has a taste for wanting to be something. So again, if like he has contradicted just the things on education alone so many times, and it goes back and forth, and that's what I find disturbing. Like, Kenny's been to my house, he's seen my degrees, he's seen my transcripts. I mean, even on my wall I have leftover commencement tickets, and I can tell you the dates, where I was when I earned which degree. I have records of my residency in 2 different states for the schools that I went to. It's just crazy to me. He has nothing, and he can't and he will mix it up. You don't mix it up. I have 4 degrees, 2 bachelors, 2 masters, and I never get confused as to what I earned where or when. Those are maybe like milestones,
Right.
So that to me is okay, dude. When you start lying about shit like that, I'm coming for you, because there's no need. I know people who have no degrees. They've never gone to college. I served with them downrange, and I will tell you, they are probably some of the most brilliant human beings I've ever come across. Just genius, some of the stuff. They could jerry-rig anything, or they can tear things apart and figure out how this works and explain it. They can Barney style it to me so that I understand it. And they don't have masters. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Just don't try and make yourself something that you're not, which is what Bob did. And you know what, Bob, in your chat room, sorry, your name is Bob.
Bob Lazar, sorry.
Don't change your name.
Warrior's question.
He's going to use his confirmation name, he said.
So I want to just address Warrior MTI question right there. That the bike picture looks more like a rocket, not a jet engine. So why call it a jet if it's a rocket? Because it's not a rocket. It's actually a jet. It's a jet pressure jet. I'm sorry. I'm gonna butcher this name. Gloharef pressure jet engine. And there's a company you can look up. That's the name of it. And they are the ones that made that engine. So it is a jet engine, and it burns. What's it? I forget what it burns. Hydrogen? No, I forget. I forget exactly what it does. But it's definitely a jet engine. It's not a rocket. So it's not something that just. That's why we called it that, because that's exactly what it is. And that's from the manufacturer.
They go in depth about it.
Yeah. I mean, this is really interesting read. If you download this and read this. Wasn't Bob Lazar arrested for something to do with prostitution ring?
Yes, he was, and that's why I call him Pimp Daddy Bob.
You call him what? Repeat that.
I call him Pimp Daddy Bob.
Pimp Daddy.
Yes.
She does the whole head bob thing.
Yeah.
Daddy Bob.
He's Pimp. So yeah, he was, and again, I have the I sent it to Kenny, and I also have it on the Facebook page at Military Veterans Paranormal's Facebook page. But he was arrested for pandering. And this is what's crazy, is because he shows a history of lying. So when he was first doing his plea deal, he only admitted that he had helped to modernize the business of a prostitute, Tony Bullock, by helping her do some computer work. Now, essentially, this is what had happened. What had happened was...
Oh, my goodness.
Bob, he once owned a brothel, didn't do well. He has this thing about this, but he sought out a prostitute by the name of Tony Bullock. He wanted to invest in building a new brothel. She was supposed to find the Johns and get some other tricks, have them come in, she'll work the brothel, and he takes 50%.
Huh.
Pimp all the way.
Yeah, yes. So during his plea deal, again, he said, hey, man, I just did some computer work. All right. But then the judge asked the prosecutor if that admission would satisfy him. And the prosecutor was like, no, this player did a lot more than just computer work. So that's when they got Tony to testify. They were able to pull a lot more surveillance, some other records. And at one meeting, he kind of lured Tony in because he talked about UFOs and his credentials. And that's what she said really got her on board, because she thought that he was real. But the records started showing he helped to set up the business. He kept computer records of the customers. He took 50% of the share of her fees. He also videotaped customers and maintained records of their license plates. 2 of his Newport Cove apartments, which were part of the business venture, he drilled holes between. Hello. So yeah, so that he cut through the walls, and so there was a big giant hole there, and he was taking videos.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah, things like that. So this meek little Bob Lazar was a pimp.
Yeah.
So he did get charged with felony pandering. And what was crazy, and this goes back to this image that he has, his own attorney named Bill Smith. Could you be any more generic, Bill Smith? Anyway, Bill, his attorney, said that even though he wasn't going to have to serve time, because he did get community service hours, the felony conviction was enough punishment for his client's misdirected adventure. Because, and this is a quote from his attorney, this has had a devastating effect. He has to get his finances back together, reconstruct his self-image and his image with the public.
What?
Yeah.
You heard a public image, Pimp Daddy Bob?
Oh, Bob, that's your new name.
Oh,
Pimp Daddy Bob.
Pimp Daddy Bob in the house.
Yeah. So that's what's crazy, is he was concerned about all that, and he had to get his finances back together. Well, when I dug into his finances and his bankruptcy, listen, people, when you file bankruptcy, people will be able to get that, even though they're not supposed to. And it does tell your history. And the history that his bankruptcy proceeding showed, he likes to buy a lot of things. He likes to borrow a lot of money, but he is horrible managing finances. So as far as him getting his finances back together, he never had any to begin with. He was so far in debt. It was ridiculous. He's buying these fancy cars. I mean, look at this. He's borrowing money. I mean, if Jesus had a coin purse, he'd probably hit him up for money too. It's just he's borrowing money everywhere. So
I didn't have it in front of me. I did calculate like all the money. Oh, here. So when he filed for bankruptcy, I did add it up. I don't know if you did. I added up a lot of stuff here, and it came to just the stuff that I could find. It came to $120,000 that he was in debt. That was back then. The 2021 equivalent was $297,000.
And not everything was listed on these bankruptcy proceedings. It turned out after he filed, or right when he was filing, more creditors came forward, some of which were like other family members. So the tally was going up. It's just enough damage was done. So
I did find the final accounting showed that he had $173,000 in assets and $270,000 in debt. And again, this is in 1987 money, which today I calculated up to, and I went through a website that does the adjustment for inflation. $670,000 he was in debt. That in today's money, that's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, especially for someone with a master's degree.
I was going to say
from
that.
MIT and Caltech, you know.
Right.
But hey,
big thing there. I mean, and this is just what you're seeing on the screen is listing some of it. I know it's very small. Sorry about that, but it lists out like all these loans that he just took out. Loan after loan after loan. I was surprised. I was honestly surprised when I saw it because I was like, why? He's taking a loan out here, and then he's going to another bank and taking another loan out, and then he's going to another bank and taking another loan out.
Sorry, but we're getting interrupted. This is the second time, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's getting interrupted.
Bob said it too.
Okay.
Barry, broadcast is gone.
Broadcast is gone. It still says live, so I don't know what's going on here. But
give him a few seconds to come back on, because.
All right. Well, we'll keep going. Anyway, so yeah, lots of finances. He's in trouble. I can see why getting attention, especially I gotta put my brain back up. There we go. Especially coming up with a story that will get him on TV or in front of a camera.
Right. So here's the weird thing with this. For my team, we're all in the military. We were all in the military. We all had to, especially me, you know, the higher up you go, your security clearance will change. But when you first go in, before you can, some MOSs require higher security clearances, even for a secret clearance. And when you're working for a government, whether it was a contractor or civilian contractor or DOD employee, you are subject to this background investigation for your security clearance. So Lazar claimed that he worked at S4 and went through Area 51, and that he had the highest security clearance for his branch, which is a Q clearance. The reason why his bankruptcy is important is because if you have a bankruptcy or you are in a lot of debt, you are then considered a high risk for espionage, and it would automatically eliminate you from being able to get a security clearance, aka this bitch wouldn't have gotten a job at S4. You wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't be able to do shit because you're a risk. So this bankruptcy was done before he allegedly worked at this S4 site. So that's another red flag that tells me, no, you didn't. You didn't have no Q clearance.
That's the only discrepancy I found, is that he filed for bankruptcy July 21st, 1986, but claims that he worked in the facility in 1982.
He already had his debts.
Okay.
And so they would run those records, and then his dates changed. So he had previous claims, and he also had his dates of employment shifted here and there depending on
Right. Okay.
when he was interviewed.
Oh.
Okay.
There is no actual record of his dates of employment. Now,
Right.
his first interview came out in 89. And when his first interview came out, he was still kind of working there.
But
Kinda.
there's a stipulation about that.
Yeah. Because he wouldn't be working there had he filed bankruptcy, because in his bankruptcy papers, he never listed Lanel
right.
or Los Alamos
Yeah.
as his employer. He listed himself as self-employed photo processor.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
With degrees from MIT and Caltech. The best you can do is develop a Polaroid. Pimp Daddy Bob. What the fuck?
Oh, let's be fair. He was film processing, so like real film. Polaroid is a different film. It develops itself.
Look at that
We're
face.
being fair. But I get it, because he did have a home business. That was a home business, or I think he allegedly listed a physical location, which
He borrowed money for this photo
yes.
processing.
Which was also the equipment that he bought was later repossessed.
Yeah.
Because he could not pay back the loan. Yes. So,
So,
and I want everyone to understand, like, we're not picking on him per se. We're showing good, legitimate, plausible reason for his story to crumble, because everything is falling apart. Nothing is making sense. It is not. These puzzle pieces are from 15 different puzzles. They don't work. They don't fit together. So that's.
And I think that's why he was able to get away with so much. Some people will question this. Some people might question that, but then they're not really putting the puzzle together. Everybody's had these pieces. Nobody's figured out, let's put them all in the same box, fit them together, and see the overall picture.
Right.
When you do, then you start realizing, dude, this should have stuck to pimping.
Yeah.
That's what you're good at. That and processing Polaroids.
All right, so let's. You killed me with the processing Polaroid.
I gotta answer someone's question. Asked me where I was stationed. I'm 101st Air Assault, Fort Campbell. That's where I got fenced in. Okay. And Fort Drum, very cold.
So let's talk about more of the employment, the alleged employment at this secret facility. Alleged, because there's at least three things that I want to address here, which are main points. One is, well, basically getting in. There is talk of a special hand scanner that they used, and he described it was a very high-tech thing. I'm giving background information so that he would be able to get in certain areas. So can you tell us about that? Yep.
So he claimed that he had this. One of his things was to get in. There was this thing, this kind of scanner, and I had to put my hand on it, and there was these different points, and it was really crazy. And then everybody especially after Netflix, was totally freaking out because they use hand scanners. Except Kenny knows this. I found an article in Radio Electronics from 1973. Would you look at that? That is the exact hand scanner Bob Lazar supposedly was like, wow, I never thought I would see this again. Bitch, it was right there in 1973 before you had even graduated from Caltech. So
I do want to point out down here, it does say Radio Electronics, July 1973. And I did, in preparation for the show, I watched the Joe Rogan interview with him.
Blessed.
And when they brought it up, they started talking about the scanner. They brought up a picture of this one that you see right here with the hand on it. They brought up the exact model, and he's like, yep, that's it. That's it. So 10 years, a decade before he was allegedly working there, they already had this technology. It was already well known. It was out in the public. So it's not like it was something special. It was not something like only for secret government facilities dealing with alien technology. It was out a decade beforehand.
Right. But to hear him say it, then when he was being interviewed by George Knapp, who's the one who blew this whole story, like put him on the map, like, can you believe it? Bob Lazar was like, yeah, they had this hand scanner and it used these points like it was this crazy invention. Because keep in mind, and this, I'm not trying to offend the nerds. Hey, man, more power to you.
Nerds.
I'm a nerd.
I'm not. Look, I've said this a million times. I'm like the only Asian that can't do math, and I hate science. At least I'm honest. So for all you nerds out there, you know there are certain magazines that nerds like. And for nerds like Pimp Daddy Bob, he would read something like Radio Electronics or Scientific American because he probably had no friends. I mean, hello. And it kind of put, and this was before the internet, not a lot of people are going to be reading that. Hello. Is this, so it would be easy for him to say that. But when you're in 2017, when the documentary was being filmed, documentary being filmed, Jeremy Corbell says, this is the hand scanner they're using now, and this is a picture of what we found to substantiate your story. And he's like, wow, what? I never thought I was ever going to see that. That's crazy.
Right.
Bro, you saw that. You saw it and it gave you an idea.
Right.
So
that's what it sounds like a lot of his shit is, that he saw this stuff. And you're right. I mean, when I was growing up, I was horrible in school. I was horrible. I probably graduated around the same place as he did. But I read those magazines. I read Scientific America. I read science magazines and technical magazines because I thought they were cool. I love technology. And I read this stuff. So this is nothing new to me. Like I relate to what you're saying.
My brother too. These were the kind of things that my brother liked, and what they had kits for some of the things that he claimed he came up with. And it's like, dude, my oldest brother was a nerd. I mean, he even had a bowl cut. So chemistry set used to make me clouds. I know you read these magazines at some point and you're trying to pass it off like, what? Really, dude?
Yeah.
I just want to
kick
him in the gooch.
If you match that up with all the sci-fi shit that we watched, you know, like people like me growing up, I watched Buck Rogers. I watched Flash Gordon. I watched Star Trek. I watched all these TV series and movies and B movies that were really horrible, but they were great. And I mean, if I sat down, I could write you a story. I could bring up a story and think on the fly. If you're asking me questions, sure, I can pull something out of my ass. And that was from a movie that I saw 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and say, oh yeah, this is what they had. It was really cool. You don't see it anymore because you only saw it in a movie. All right. moving on. The second thing I want to talk about is the ID card that he
Mm.
had. So he presented an ID card for working at S4.
This is where I have to woosah.
Um,
Woosah.
Ooh.
You are a photo processor, Pimp Daddy Bob, and this
Yes.
was the best ID card you could come up with. So let's look at this ID card.
So I can shut. There it is.
There we go.
Part of it. Yes.
Yeah. So number one, your picture probably came from your yearbook in high school.
It looks like
No, that's the best picture and it's at an angle. It's like, come on, dude. First off, and John, you know you're in the military. We have ID cards. They make you say face directly towards the camera.
Mhm.
There's no really cool background. You don't have props or anything. You're not prepped up. You're just like, because they don't even tell you when they're snapping the photo. Everybody's ID card looks horrid. But then let's look at this. U.S. Department of Naval Intelligence. When did you take this photo, Bob? Huh? 1945, because that's the last, because it doesn't match your W-2, which, oh, wait a minute, it does, because it was stopped using U.S. Department of Naval Intelligence after World War II.
Wow.
It's the Department of the Navy or Department of Naval Intelligence, but not the U.S. Department of Naval Intelligence. In fact, the Navy and the DOD even said, yeah, that don't make no sense. Because it's, non-existent. In fact, the EIN number doesn't even match the place that you said it, but the employer you listed.
Wow.
Right.
So for going to the ID card also, it should have come from Wackenhut. I didn't make that name up. Great.
In a moment. Wackenhut.
Now, so Wackenhut, because Wackenhut, you have to, it was the contractor that issued the ID cards and crazy thing is there are people who did work at Area 51 and who worked for the contractor Wackenhut, and they shared their badges. It don't look nothing like that. And why would you even have S4D5ETL? Really? They don't put your department on your badge like that. Dude, that's the reason why your photo processing business failed, because you make some whack ass shit like that.
All right, I'm gonna see. I think you sent me. Oh, wait, there it is. Hold on. You sent me somebody that did have security badge. Was that one of them?
That is.
Okay.
That is a real. Go back.
There you go.
Wackenhut.
Wackenhut.
Yeah. Look at that picture. Look at Wackenhut's picture in the back. He doesn't look like glamour shot 1984. No, he doesn't. He's like this. Okay, look directly at the camera and did you take it? Yep. Oh man, that's shitty. Too bad. That's a real contractor. But then let's go to a real Area 51 badge.
So is that the last one?
Yeah. But how? Again, not ready for it. Their smile, no. It's just like, am I in the frame? See? Expires in depth. Nevada operations. Security, it color. It has the little clip on there. It's attached to something. Oh, so people started calling you out on your badge, Bob. And what did you say? Well, this was a recreation. Pimp Daddy Bob, you can recreate a badge to simulate the badge that you once had, and I'm supposed to believe that?
Right.
You passed that off as being real first until someone said, it don't look like this.
Now, I want to show you something. This is just for fun. So I can show you all kinds of badges that I have. Hold on, I'm going to go full screen again and just show you some examples.
Those are awesome badges.
Those
The
are
one
all-
with the Statue of Liberty, real.
Right?
Wait,
Hello.
it gets better. It
Ghostbuster.
gets better. Is that all I have? Oh, and my favorite, which I'm going to preface this one with, this actually got me into a Comic-Con for free.
It did. It got me into.
Shut the fuck up.
Yes.
You are my hero.
No kidding.
You
I
are
wore this.
my hero,
I
Kenny
had a
Bill.
suit on. I had a full suit on that was, the shirt was unbuttoned, so I could do this with the Superman S. But I had this on my front, and I went up to security, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yep, I'm a journalist." I showed him this badge, fully expecting to be kicked out.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh," he looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, sure, go ahead. Are they with you?" And I said,
Yep.
"Yes."
We all
And we
walked
all
in.
got in. So
Genius.
these are made from Comic-Con. They cost me like $2. Really.
You can get 'em
And
at any
yes,
Comic-Con.
with my I do photography, so I could easily put my picture in there.
He
And
could have processed your photos for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really doesn't take much to make one of these. And especially, yes, given his background, he was a film processor, he had all the equipment, he could definitely make these. So
Mhm.
this is not evidence to me. This is
But let's go to the W-2.
okay.
So we did hint on that, but I do want you guys to look at this. Number one, the control number is empty. For a military W-2, that control number won't be empty. Look at his wages, $958. What the freak kind of physicist are you, Bob? You only got paid $958. Out of Nevada, all right, you paid Social Security, federal income tax withheld. Got it. But what is this? 1989?
Oops.
Hello?
Oops.
Bye. Yeah.
Not-
You might want to get your story straight. See, again, United States Department of Naval Intelligence, you don't even have an address on there. Okay. Not to mention, not from 1945. This now says 1989, but that's not what you said when you worked there. When did you work there, Bob? Because this is after your bankruptcy.
1982, I believe.
Who knows
Who
anymore?
knows?
Bob.
I'm pretty sure I know. He didn't, but yeah. There's just so much wrong here. The
It
even the
speaks for
font.
itself.
The font is completely different. If this should have been typed in,
Right.
it should have been typed in. We should have had typewriter font. We should have had that. That's something that was added because of this card, not a more modern day computer font that I see.
Thank you. And he somehow produced this as evidence. Well, I challenge all of you guys, anybody listening to this, Bob, plug in that EIN number. Search for that EIN number.
Yes.
And you will be surprised at what you find. Because I guarantee you, it's not the United States Department of Naval Intelligence.
So this is the letter, I believe.
Yep,
right?
that's the letter.
The employer identification number on the form they tracked it down to the Office of the Internal Revenue Service, located in Aberdeen,
South Dakota.
There's no L there.
Aberdeen.
Okay. Aberdeen, South Dakota. So yeah, that was the wrong place, dumbass.
Hello. Yeah.
And this is coming from Captain of the U.S. Navy.
JAG Corps.
Executive Assistant.
is the JAG Corps legal
Okay, yeah, Department of the Navy. Okay.
headquarters. This went all the way up, and I guarantee you, Captain Jones, as he's signing this, is like this dumbass.
Right.
You're gonna get busted, dumbass.
He said it right in the letter with the 46 there in the front.
All right. So look, we're gonna take our break. So we're going to take a commercial break, 2 minutes, 22 seconds. You are welcome to use the facilities and fill up your cup. That's what I'm going to do.
Me too.
And
I got to pay.
we will be right back, and we will continue this conversation because I have more questions. This is fun. All right, so we'll be right back.
Okay.
And go. Hey everyone, this is my store based on the theme of science and skepticism. It's here that you can find all kinds of shirts and hoodies, yoga pants, tote bags, the fanny packs I know you guys love, masks and pillows, all with science and skepticism as the theme. I even have hoodies for your pets. That's right, your dog or cat can wear one of these things. I also have a general store that sells more inspirational quotes or, drinking stuff because I like that kind of thing. I also have a store set up for our Three Tortured Souls podcast, which we do Saturday nights. You can find shirts and Tim Vicker's favorite drinking vessel, the mug. I also have a store tailored a little bit more towards my ghost hunting friends, Paranormal by I Am Kenny Biddle. These are shirts and quotes that are a little bit more on the ghost hunting side, especially this one, Translucent Perished Beings. Ghost. That's my favorite. So if you're interested, head on over to teespring.com/stores/scientific skepticism by IAKB and check it out. Thanks.
Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. Three Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific. Three Tortured Souls.
All right.
I told you I had to pee.
Oh, all right. Whew.
A little
Okay.
tipsy.
So, let's see. What do we got? Oh, let's see. John's got a question for me. Commercial says you have merch for our pets. What do you have for my fish? Oh, John Kennedy, you bitch.
Ron, I'm not sure I believe that fish are pets because you can't pet it.
Ooh,
I know.
that's
Because
good.
my brother had all these beautiful, very exotic fish in his giant fish tank. And I reached in there and I tried to pet them. They swam away. And like within a week, everybody died. All those fish died. Apparently something about oils and lotions on your hands and stuff like that kind of can make them sick. I killed them all.
Oh,
Well, but you
all
can't eat fish.
Well, I mean, I have. I stick
You
my hand
reach
in
in
there.
there and you pet your fish?
I've pet fish.
What?
Yeah.
Kenny's weird.
What is this source you speak of?
Magic. All right. Let's get back into our favorite UFO person.
There's something I want to bring up here
Sure.
that a lot of I don't really hear people talk about. So
Okay.
one of the main elements of Lazar's story of how he became employed. He's actually repeated this several times. He stated that he was a replacement employee for another scientist that had been killed in a major explosion. Yeah, true story. I'm not making this up. So he said that he was told that there was this underground tunnel at the test site where the reactor had been taken for an experiment. And he told George Knapp in November of 1989, quote, there was an accident back in April of 1987, an accident that was passed off as an unannounced nuclear test. It killed 3 people, also destroyed a few $100,000 of monitoring equipment. He repeated in September 1990 interview, UFOs and the Alien Presence, that the blast had blown the door off into the monitoring area, and he thought the blast size was in the 20 kiloton range. So, very consistent stories. Major explosion, people died. Except, per DOE records, there were only 3 announced tests in April of 1987. April 18th, codename Delamar, 20 to 150 kilotons. April 22nd, codename Presidio, under 20 kilotons. And April 30th, codename Hardin, 20 to 150 kilotons. The tests were well known in advance. Because there were protesters at the test site, nobody died. But then in December of 1993, the DOE released all of the previous announced tests as well as unannounced tests, meaning if there was an explosion or a test that was going to happen or that had happened, they released the date that it happened.
Okay.
Let's say you don't believe that. Okay. Go to the USGS, the U.S. Geological rock people.
Society. You're like rock people.
Geology.
So the U.S. Geological Survey.
Service, yes.
Okay.
So they have a database. It's the Global Hypocenter database, and that's basically like their absolute records of any kind of geological disturbance.
Okay.
If you do a search in the parameters of which he said, let's say from February 1st, 1987 to the end of May 1987 with a magnitude range of 1 to 9.9. The only 3 that actually had some sort of seismic activity was for the 3 DOE tests that were announced and prepped for. In other words, there was only seismic activity within a 100 kilometer radius of the test sites that were already announced and were already on record. Other than that, there was nothing. AKA, there was no big ass explosion that blew the door off and killed 3 people, and then you replace them as a physicist. Boom shakalaka.
I love this. The pillars are crumbling down because
They are.
There's nothing to prove that he's a physicist. He's not. His education is gone. His proof, everything that he's providing to validate that he was actually at a facility is non-existent. So
right.
It's coming down. So let's move on to, unless you have more with this, but let's move on to.
No, we can go on.
Okay. He's allegedly, because we have to use that word, keep drinking, allegedly at the facility now. He goes in, he's there, and from what I'm gathering, there's conflicting reports. Like it sounds like he worked there for a while.
Right? 1 week, folks.
Yes, that's the other reports that I'm getting where his
What facility are we talking about?
So we're talking about
S4.
S4, which is a building.
Okay.
It's one of the areas in Area
Outside.
51.
Yeah, it's separate.
So it's south of the Area 51.
Area 51.
There's another dry lake bed there. It's like
Papoose Lake.
Okay, yes.
Groom Lake, Papoose Lake, yeah.
And according to his reports, there's like a hangar in the side of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Which the pictures are really cool.
Secret
the sketches.
installation, he said, in the
Secret,
side of the
yes.
mountain. Yeah.
That you can see with Google Maps.
Nice.
Right.
There's nothing there. But he's saying that it's there, and yeah, the amount of time that it looks like he actually might have spent there totaled just over a 40-hour week, something like 49 hours.
49 hours.
Yeah. So I know just from my simple experiments on little like haunted fucking dolls, I can spend that much time just on that, figuring out what's going on. Not to mention something that's supposed to be alien technology that we have no idea how to do it. And from his descriptions, it sounds like all they do is just cut shit all open.
So let's look at that Los Alamos, okay?
Let's
S4.
look.
So George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, so John Kennedy is already onto what I'm thinking. In the military, S4 is inventory and supplies. Oh, yeah. You picked the wrong one, guy. Bob.
Bob.
So he uses the fact that his name was in the phone book of Los Alamos. And he said, see, here's my name, Robert Lazar, because he told the Los Alamos newspaper when they did an article on him that he was a physicist working at Los Alamos. However, there were people that knew Bob back in those days, like a guy named John Horn. Remember him, Daddy? He said that Bob was doing something with electronics, like a technician. He is, then the phone directory lists him working for a company with K/M. So when he's listed in the Los Alamos phone directory, right next to his name is the acronym K/M. Well, K/M stands for Kirk Meyer. Kirk Meyer was a subcontractor that brought in techs, people who could come in and fix things here and there, set something up. That's a big difference from working for Los Alamos,
right,
and working at Los Alamos. Right. So the subcontractors for Kirk Meyer would go to Los Alamos. They would do one project and that would be done. And that's what he was probably doing for that 1 week, because in his own radio interview with Billy Goodman back in 1989, he stated that he started at Lanel, which Los Alamos, as a technician. So, Bob, riddle me this. How do you start as a technician and in less than 1 week, you get the promotion of a lifetime to a physicist? Yet, while you're there, you admit, because you told Jeremy Corbell in 1982 you were working at Lanel and you went out and you installed a satellite dish. What the fuck kind of physicist goes out and installs a satellite dish, Bob? Now that done pissed me off.
That was the electrician part of him.
Why do people just... And Corbell didn't stop to think, hey, that's weird. Something's a little off. Why'd you install a satellite dish? Really? Yeah, in 49 hours. But let's talk about this. Okay. So he said he was driven to S4 from Groom in a bus over lots of dirt roads, which implies that he... Okay, so let me understand this. You're in a bus that can somehow off-road to a secret installation, a bus. And he said there was only one or two of them that was ever on the bus, that he would go to work at like 4 or 5 at night, or no, at 11 p.m. at night and be done at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Right.
Really?
Huh?
Really? That's for 1 week. That's what you did. So and then it switched. Okay. Then it was, we were flown in, then we were put on a bus with everything covered. And then we were transported over there into the secret. We had to sit in this cafeteria And then they would take us to S4. And yet he couldn't describe the cafeteria.
Yes.
Because he had a mask over his head.
He was asked at the Rachel conference in Nevada.
Nevada, yeah.
Yeah, May 1st, 1993. Can you describe the cafeteria? And he couldn't. He was like, I don't remember. But really? You can't remember a place that you sat in? And you weren't hungry, Bob?
This is
You weren't hungry.
So this plays into a lot of interviews that I do. But when it's not part of the story that you have, and this is something we've seen over and over again, especially, well, Roundtree again comes to mind, but when you have this story, you have this preset story, it's written out in your head, you already know it, you've told it 100 times, so you're well versed in it and you're ready to answer those questions according to that story. But when it deviates, when it goes from that story and like you go to a facility where they have a cafeteria, if you go there, it doesn't matter. You take lunch, you go to the cafeteria. You should be able to explain or describe what the cafeteria looks like. It's simple things like this, but it's a deviation from the normal story that you have, your narrative.
Absolutely.
So once you deviate from that, you are fucked. You
Right.
have no idea what to do, and you start looking around. And these are, these are recall cues to me. So you're trying to recall something. You're trying to look. You're stalling for time. For one, you're giving yourself a little bit of time. And if you don't insert something like, I just don't remember. Let's, and you change the subject. You try to make up things, little details, but you're struggling because you are making them up, and you have to realize you're on camera, so you have to memorize those details as you make them up, because, like Bob does, you can fuck up in later interviews, so you can change.
Some heifer with an Army T-shirt and real degrees starts catching on. She calls you pimp daddy, and then it's all downhill from there.
Right.
So he showed, Lazar had his own poster that he used to describe Papoose Lake and how this bus was able to off-road to the secret installation. But when you review the satellite photos of Papoose Lake, even on his own poster, there's no evidence of any kind of road that he described. Now, there's roads on the east side of the Papoose Range. So you would think if there were roads on the west side, it would show that too. Not to mention the fact that Greenpeace, our favorite tree hugging organization, in 1993, they had a demonstration. Like, it was a massive demonstration, and they did it on Papoose Lake. And if you guys are wondering, Papoose Lake is lake in theory. It's all dried up. There ain't no water there.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, I'll show you. I'll let you guys see. So this is, let me get this off here. So here is Groom Lake. This is Area 51 along the side. There is, how do you say it?
Papoose Lake.
Yeah, that one right there.
Okay,
That's where he's claiming S4 was and where he worked.
So yeah, and from what I'm gathering, it sounds like it's in the side of the mountain. So, I mean, I'm guessing it's here, but I've seen other reports. I've looked at the whole area. There's nothing there that he described.
Well, this is where Greenpeace comes in. So they had a demonstration right there on Papoose Lake. They were all over the place there. So they reported absolutely no sign of any kind of secret installation. But let's say that there was. The question is, how would Greenpeace, if it was so secret, how the fuck would Greenpeace be able to get up there?
To get up there, yes, exactly. They wouldn't. We've been there. Donna and I have been there at Area 51. We've driven around. No, you're not getting. I was scared to death. Probably one of the few times I was scared to death walking up to the gate, because I realized, yes, I can get to the gate. I know I can walk up to the gate, but I'm not even thinking about going. She went up to look at the sign, and I was
loved
freaking
it.
out.
He was like, "Oh my god,
I was
where are you
freaking out.
going?" I'm like, "I'm going up to read
need
the
to come back.
sign."
Yeah.
No matter what, they know where we are.
I didn't care. I mean,
They're watching us.
We were.
You need to get the
We
fuck
were
back.
still legal. We were still legal. They're not going to do anything. I didn't touch the gate.
Don't touch the gate. Don't touch it.
Kenny looked at me and was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm walking up to read the sign.
So another guy came up.
He's like,
he
come
parked,
back.
And I was like, let him go first. Let him get it. Because if he falls, if he drops, that's it. I'm running. So, yeah.
So it in Rachel, back in 93, someone asked him, how long were you part of the S4 project and how key of a person were you on the science team that was studying these vehicles? Lazar's response was, I was probably there only 6 months, or maybe was it 4 months? Something like that. It's hard to remember.
What?
Is it?
You were working on the dream job.
And you didn't know how long
The
you were
job
there?
that nerds like us would almost kill for.
Right?
Because it's an alien spacecraft.
Right.
With technology so far beyond those of mortal men. I would remember exactly what I did every fucking day.
When I started and when I stopped. Like,
because I would be smiling so big. Like,
With his big round glasses.
Yes.
You remember, was it
And
4 months or 6 months?
I'm sure they don't hire people for that amount of time. Like
nerd glasses all the way. Yes. I would be right there. I would live there. I would say yes.
I absolutely would. So then he goes on to say, because, the second question was, how key of a person were you on the science team? Well, he was a physicist who installed satellite dishes. So apparently it was really important because we all need satellite. He said, and I quote, nerd glasses on for effect. Nerd. Even though I was the last rung on the ladder, they were looking to me for fresh ideas, which I really didn't have anything because I didn't really know what was going on or where they had been. But then it was a really very disorganized group. That's really all I can relay because I really don't know how else to describe it.
That was a non-answer. That was a complete non-answer. And
wow.
After watching the videos or the interviews that he's done, that's all he gives. He gives non-answers.
He talks in circles.
Yes. He avoids the question by starting.
He is so verbose. He uses all these words that actually says nothing.
Right.
It's insulting.
Right.
And I get a little pissed off because if you really start listening to him or reading transcripts of what he says, you get dumb.
Right.
And as we get older in age, we have to cling to every brain cell we have. So it's quite offending that he would fuck our brains up like that.
Yes.
So the other question you bring up, you said it yourself, Kenny, is you said dream job, right? So he had to get a Q clearance. Well, he said that while he was waiting for his clearance, he was given hundreds of highly classified documents in blue folders, little file folders, that he would about aliens and new technology, and he had to assess it all, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Listen here, Ron. I'm going to school you for a second.
Aaron.
If you don't have your security clearance, you ain't reading shit, and you're not going to be in a highly classified facility because it's a need to know, and you don't need to know until you cleared. But then he said 8 days later, he was already working. You don't get a top secret Q clearance in 8 days. It takes 6 months or up to a year just to get a secret clearance. And it's crazy.
Just when I worked in aerospace, we were starting to get government contracts. We were getting military contracts. And for me to work on them, I had to get clearance. And I forget the level. I forget the level. They just told me, like, you need clearance before you can work on this stuff. And it was at least 2 months before I was allowed to work on any of the aircraft. So, and I'm sure I was at the bottom of the tier. Like, I was at the rock bottom of it. I'm just working on aircraft, just putting together standard parts. I wasn't even doing anything secret. I wasn't doing any weapons. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was doing the same job I had been doing for years before. But because it was on a military contracted aircraft, I needed certain clearance. And it's 2 months easy before I was given the okay to do that. So, yeah, when you talk about, when I heard you say 8 days, no fucking way.
Absolutely
no, it doesn't happen.
Especially since he had already had a bankruptcy on record. Especially since he had already had debt, and he did not have even you have to also clear your education. If you make education claims, it has to be verified with transcripts. He had no established record of residency. So there's a lot of problems with just that. But if this was his dream job, and let's just say unicorns are real and they fart rainbows and shit sprinkles, and he got this cute clearance, why the heck would he risk it? By talking, because he would know not only that he would be breaching contract, his life would be done because it's a felony offense. And it would actually, he would fall under espionage because he just violated possible national security, disclosed highly classified information, blah, blah, blah. So he would understand the severity of what he did. So why would you risk your dream job if you're working on something that can change the world? He said because the scientific community needed to know. The scientific community needs to know where your transcripts are, Bob, and where your diplomas are, Bob.
He didn't offer anything. He didn't offer a goddamn thing.
Well,
every answer, and before we get into the element, because I think that's where you're going, did not offer anything.
Not
every answer that he gave was complete nonsensical bullshit. And he would, like, he did this, he had this technique where he would start and stop 3 or 4 times on different things, different ideas, but he would never finish or complete the sentence. He would never complete the thought, and then move on to some kind of basic answer, a basic analogy that would divert from the question. And that was really frustrating the shit out of me when I was watching these interviews, because I was like, dude, we didn't get anywhere. And the fact that Joe Rogan, on his interview, he actually put up with that. I was really pissed off that he put up with that, and just let it go.
I don't think that's because I don't think Joe Rogan really knows enough about this community to how to dig in this community, because it's the paranormal community, ufology. We're a bunch of freaking weirdos.
So Mel, why wouldn't the military go after him?
Probably because they knew he was full of shit.
So they just kind of let it go because it's not really.
Not to mention, the end of the Cold War. It's a good distraction. You can get a lot of other ops done and taken care of. Hey, let them believe this shit kicker.
Okay.
It's not true.
Right.
It's not going to hurt us. We're not.
Makes sense, yeah.
In making a name for himself, he was benefiting the people that he was allegedly being a whistleblower on.
Okay.
He was helping them out.
Right, because
you're a distraction.
Okay.
So, okay.
So he was asked also at Rachel, how many levels are there at S4? Simple question, right? Was it just one? Does it go underground? And he said, there might be two. I know there's one because obviously I was on one, but I can't actually remember if anyone or if there was any direct mention from there or of there being a lower level, because I really wasn't allowed to roam freely around. So I don't know, because I really don't know. So Bob, you couldn't pee?
Right?
Yeah.
You had to walk through a cafeteria. You didn't go by a door, a stairwell, because no matter where you are, even in the military, and I've been in class and in lockdown facilities, you have to know where fire exits are.
Yes.
You dumb fuck. You have to know what the fire plan is in case of emergency, because who's to say? I've watched, what was it? I watched Independence Day. That alien came back. What if that happened, Bob, while you're working on the machine? You got to know where to run.
Part of your orientation, Bob. That's first day shit right there.
First day.
But
day. Apparently Bob is just so brilliant. He gets to skip orientation. He goes right there, installs the satellite dish, and bam, he's
Well, he's got a magic diploma, so,
Bob made it sound like he had somebody with him the whole time he was there.
Yeah, except when he was walking back, when he touched it, remember, he went up to...
he said he touched it, yeah.
He touched it, and it pushed him back. And when he quickly walked past that door and peeked through, and I saw some aliens, was it? Which he later said, no, they could have been really small scientists.
So that, I want to explore, not that particular incident, but he does say that he got a look at several craft. Nine spacecraft.
9. You couldn't pick a simpler number. No, think about this, Kenny. Think about this. Okay. In the motor pool, for example, or in a military installation, highly classified, you want low visibility. Okay. So you're not going to put a whole bunch of stuff, especially if they are high value. You never put a bunch of high value targets or high value anything in one spot in the event it gets hit. That is just tactical proficiency. But for some reason, and 9 vehicles, these aren't small. They're not like my cell phone size. These are big honking things. That would take up an enormous amount of space.
Right.
Think of a car lot, you're taking up a car lot, basically. There would be satellite, there would be some sort of housing necessary for 9. It would have been a little bit more plausible if he would have just stuck to like maybe 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you might get some leeway there. But 9, there were 9 alien spacecrafts at one time, all housed in the same location.
I can speak from experience, and looking at his interview, I think on the Joe Rogan interview, he gave a estimated size, and I think it was between 50 and 60 feet. One of them, I think like 50, 55 or 50, something like that. I believe that was the number. I didn't write it down, but I worked on aircraft. I worked in aerospace, so I know how many helicopters, which are smaller than that, can fit in a hangar. And to put 9 in a row, that's a big ass hangar. That's huge, especially when you need room to work. You need room for workbenches for the people that are working on this stuff. It's not a small affair.
Not to mention, you would have to, if these truly were alien aircraft, they would cordon it off in such a fashion to not only protect the craft itself and to give some sort of room in the event there's an explosion, something goes wrong, but also to protect employees in the back, support material, equipment. That would be a big ass hangar, because it's like you said, Kenny, we're not talking about small helicopters here, and you don't even want those to touch. You would have to keep these separated from each other lest they contaminate the other.
And as you mentioned, safety reasons, because you're dealing, if we're going off of just Bob's description and his ideas of what what these were. They had no idea what the power source was. They speculated. He comes up with it, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But no idea how it worked. Absolutely no idea. So you would not keep them together. No, because these are literally ticking time bombs that you have. You would not want to work on them because when you're dealing with something, and I mean, it's pretty much like, and I hate to actually reuse one of his analogies, but if you basically take a nuclear reactor and you go back in time to the Victorian age and say, hey, scientists, which are not really scientists, here, figure this out. And they're going to cut it open. They're going to do experiments. They're going to blow the shit out of themselves. See, you don't want all 9 aircraft in one space. You want them spread out as far as possible. Because just in case one does rupture, if you fuck something up, you don't want to destroy the other samples.
Right.
And 2, you want to contain that blast.
Right. Not to mention also for security reasons, in that you don't, if we, hi Chuck, good night Chuck, it's been a while Chuck, if let's say we are struck, nuclear missile, bomb, terrorist attack, if you are housing all sensitive equipment and material in one location, you just, for lack of a better term, just blew your wad and you're screwed. So they would never do that. They would actually, just like our nuclear bombs, they would spread them out across the country.
Right.
So not buying it, Bob.
No.
Picked the wrong number, Bob.
That's a strong drink you made me. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I'm feeling good too, man.
Damn.
I'm good tonight, baby. Got the drinks going.
I need
a
Corona.
So where are we going?
So
with this, man?
we are in there. I do want to touch on something because as I was going through these interviews, and I mean, I gotta tell you, so most of the time I just jump on these cold, and especially when I have a guest on, I jump on cold. Like, let you run the show. I just ask some questions and I take questions from the audience and just go from there. But you had me diving down the rabbit hole. So I went down.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I went down and I noticed something when he started talking about the spacecraft. There are 3 different interviews, and I forget who posted it, but somebody posted a podcast where it was various professionals in FBI and so much that read people. Basically go through body language, not only body language, but like visual cues and all this stuff.
They're interrogators and they read body language.
Yes. So even separate from them, I just went to the interviews and looked and noticed discrepancies, like direct contradictions. So when he describes, let me see here. So when he describes a spacecraft in the Joe Rogan, which is the most recent interview that I saw of him, he describes this saucer right here, this one. He just says this picture is actually exactly what he saw. It's up on its side against a wall, and it looks like there was a projectile that was shot through it, and that he couldn't tell the size of it because it was too far away from him. And the way he says it, I got the impression that it was a test. Like, they had the aircraft and somebody took like a gun and said, hey, let's see if we can shoot through this, and shot it right there. That's the impression I got. So on a earlier interview, he says, and I quote, let me see, a lot of people have speculated they were either shot down or crashed. The craft seemed undamaged, so I doubt either of those are correct. And the rest of the interview, he says nothing about a hole through the hole.
Hole through the hole?
I'm trying to say hole through the hull. There you go.
Oh, okay.
So a hole with an O through the hole with a U.
There we go.
I thought you meant hole
Yeah.
with the O in a
Not talking about
hole,
the
like
holes.
as in a booty hole.
No, no.
But you
And
did it.
then
It's a booty hole. Sorry.
get in the hole. Get in the hole. Put it in the hole.
All right.
Why can't you get in the hole?
The drinks are too strong.
All right. So, on a third interview, talking about the same exact thing, he says one was hit by a projectile. It had a large hole in the bottom and a large hole in the top with metal bent out. And he's actually, like, you see him going like this. He's making like a swooping kind of thing. And let's see, with the metal bent out, like a large caliber 4 or 5 inch projectile going through it. So he was able to give a measurement of the hole, which in recent times was much too far away for him to measure. Oh my God! Stop making noises!
It's a booty hole.
Oh my God!
Okay, I'm serious now.
I miss you so much.
I'm sorry, people. I can't
Penny,
stay serious for too long.
back.
It just does stuff to me. But okay, wait.
Bring it back. Seriousness.
Bring it back
Right.
to the show.
I
So
gotta put my big girl pants on.
3
right, come on,
three
let's
different
go.
interviews, 3 different versions of the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
This tells me right away, like, this is just like all of my investigative spidey sense is going off and saying,
Right.
this is bullshit. He changed his story from past to present. It's changed.
So
Facts have changed.
to alibi off of that, on December 28th, 1989, he did a KVEG radio interview, and a caller called in and said, I understand there's an antenna section in this device. What is the resonant frequency that it operates at? Talking about the antenna that's on the alien spacecraft, because apparently they need antennas.
On the smooth craft that had nothing.
Bumfinger. But
Okay.
then he says, okay, Lazar's answer, the resonant frequency of the gravity wave, I do know, but I don't know it offhand. I just can't remember it. The host, Mark, says, well, can you give me a ballpark, like 2,000 kilohertz? Lazar, I don't remember. It's a really odd frequency. Mark, is it measured in kilohertz, gigahertz, or megahertz? Lazar, I really don't remember.
What the fuck?
That's your job, Bob.
He
You're
doesn't
right.
know. He doesn't
Mhm.
have an answer. And not only does he not have an answer, he won't give an answer because
won't.
he doesn't know and he's afraid to fuck it up.
So then he says, he was asked by Bert, real name of a host, did you actually bench test a unit away from the craft itself? Lazar, the reactor? Yeah. Bert, how large is this and could you describe it? Lazar, the device itself is probably a plate about 18 inches square. I said diameter before, but it's square. I'm sure of it. There's a half sphere on top where the gravity wave is tapped off of, but that's about the size of it. That's about as much as I can remember for right now. And then he goes back and forth, back and forth. The crazy thing is that in when he gets to Rachel, his whole thing is he always says, I can't remember. I don't remember. It was so long ago. They probably, have you seen, the question was, have you seen any spectrographic analysis on the elements or the craft or anything? Bob Lazar, they probably showed them to me, but I can't for the life of me remember after 4 years. This is monumental research.
Right.
This is life-changing information, and you can't remember.
This is paradigm shifting science. It is science that is going to change the way
the world.
we live.
But
And
he can't remember.
He
can't
doesn't remember.
because he's full of shit.
That's why.
Full of shit.
Wow.
Totally full of shit. It's I listen to these stories. I listen to, like, even I've spent the last week going over all the shit that he's done. And even listening to you read it off, I'm still getting pissed off, because if this was true, the science that we would have to change our entire life, I mean, we would be in Star Trek right now if this
We
was
wouldn't
true.
be having a lot of the issues the world is having.
We would have this discussion from a different planet. I'd be on a different planet going,
And you know-
hey, what's up?
You mean I'd be on Mars right now?
So I don't know why I'm pointing as if you can see it. What the fuck? Okay.
He can
So
see it. He's
you're-
looking right at your point.
I just did it again. So Barry Martz commented, and his comment is so relevant. He says, wow, can't tell the difference between a circle and a square. Right, Barry? You're there with me. We're like right here.
Exactly. Right?
We're right here.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big difference. You said, I said diameter before, but I'm sure it's a square. Hello.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Especially when you're a physicist.
Yeah. when
It's
you're
a
a
big
physicist,
fucking
you should
deal.
be able to.
He
you know
should
what?
know what a circle is. He installed the satellite dish.
Right?
I've spoken with physicists. I've worked with them on my job, the current job that I have. I've spoken with physicists. I've worked with them because they have to do certain tests on the systems that I work on, and I have to be there to fix the system. Wow. You
Fix
are not allowed to make my
the
drinks
system.
anymore. I have to fix the system and adjust it according to their test results. So I understand how they talk, but when you say, hey, got to slow it down for me, they can. This guy does not. Not only does he not know what he's talking about, he doesn't know how to explain the shit that he's making up.
Right.
So
That just baffles my mind
Yes.
because he wrote a master's thesis for MIT.
thanks, Tiffany. Yes. Yeah, he wrote a master's thesis. Yeah, he should be really smart.
Yeah.
But-
like he should have like the smarticle stuff going on to where he can write and stuff.
Article. Oh my god.
Wait, Mellanie, I didn't
love
make your
that.
drink.
Smarticle.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Smarticle.
so use that.
Okay,
I'm gonna.
wait,
that's like a.
That's
like a
shirt.
t-shirt. Smarticle.
Smarticle.
Got it.
I'm gonna use my smarticles to explain what you're talking about.
That's going to be the new word of 2021.
All
Bazinga.
right. All right. So let's can we move on? Can we move on?
Yup.
All right.
Yeah, what's this
Yep.
asshole all about?
All right. So he's working there. He says he's done all this, and then comes the big scientific kind of claim here. Element 115. The periodic table in 1982/1989 is not complete. The 7th row of the periodic table is not complete.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for the other elements. So shut up.
No, it's a comment
We're looking for
here.
them.
Let's go here.
And he claims that there is a element 115 from this alien technology.
I'm sorry, can we pause for a second?
We can
Yes, pause.
Because Bob Lenzinski
Yes.
just blew my mind. Apparently, smarticle is a word.
Get the freak out of here.
This article was used on a kids show called The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody.
What?
Can you tell if I have
They
kids?
stole my
Is
word.
that how they
Smarticle.
did they spell sweet like that? Like hotel suite? And not
Just
sweet
sweet.
like candy? Is that right?
Bob says, yeah.
Yep.
Damn.
Bob, so what's the
Holy
definition of
crap.
smarticle? What
Oh
is
my
the
God.
definition?
fucking Brian
I don't
Gunnings
know.
in
I
here.
just pulled that from my ass.
Right?
And
I thought that was
what?
our next T-shirt.
So let's
Okay, I'm sorry.
keep going.
Squirrel.
Let's keep going.
Squirrel.
All right. So
It's Bob's fault. Fucking Bob.
Stop reading the comments, Mel. I got this.
all right.
I didn't
So
mean to.
element 115. He claims that he's working with this. He didn't
Mhm.
discover it. He did not discover it. He claims that it's part of the generator or something that he takes off of the spacecraft. It's the power source of the
Yeah,
spacecraft.
I think it said it's the basic fuel
Okay.
that provides the power for the disc. But he did tell Michael Lindman in his book UFOs and the Alien Presence that he was the one who identified 115.
Okay.
He said, I was the one who identified 115. That was my only contribution to the project. And I don't stand on the fact that it's 115. But if it's not, it's 114. It's right in there. Right in there.
It's right there.
Yeah, that's you said it, fisting instead of
So
two fingers.
then they said, the question was, well, how did you determine that? Did you put it in a mass spectrograph? How do you figure out what element it was? Bob Lazar, well, there's many different ways, but certainly a mass spectrograph was one way. We also did all kinds of bizarre things. Los Alamos was apparently involved in some of the analysis of the 115. I don't know if they knew what they were doing. They were also involved in some of the machining of the 115 pieces. But as I said, this project was apparently just being worked on several years, and they had no idea what the fuel was. We were just talking about a very basic thing, certainly a reasonable starting point, and I was able to point it out and explain it as it was.
Non-answer.
Wow.
Except to
Complete
say,
failure.
it's all me,
Yeah, it's all me,
all me.
but non-answer.
Yeah.
Again, going back to not answering the question.
But it's all him.
Oh my God. So, according to him, as I read it, it was a stable element. It was a power source for the spacecraft. It would be able to stretch space-time. Actually, it was able to, and I might be wrong on this because I'm really feeling good. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
It would stretch gravity and bring the point of destination to you in order to transverse that distance, in order so that you wouldn't have to actually transverse the actual distance. It would bring the point of travel to you, and you would just be there. That's how I understood it. It was a very, very strange way of thinking about it. And honestly, like, I am not a scientist too, because I know either. But I do understand that if you create a gravity field, which he claims that this was doing, it would draw in shit from everywhere, not just the point where you want to go.
That part was explained to me, and I got that.
Okay.
The other stuff, words, sciencey words, smart people, I don't get it. And look, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Because I didn't believe anything he was saying at that point anyway. So in Rachel, this is what he said. Someone asked him, he was like, so the strong force, which you've identified with gravity A, there's been some recent theories that propose maybe an 11-dimensional universe with 7 of them rolled up, and he cuts them off and he says, look, I'm not buying that. My main problem with that, and Stephen Hawking for that matter, is that once you start creating dimensions and holes, it's like an excuse. I mean, in particle physics, they do that too. When they can't figure out something, they'll say, well, we don't know what gravity is. Well, it's caused by the graviton. They make up particles like that. But the bottom line is, every physicist has said the answer to everything is always simple. Except you don't make no sense, Bob.
Right?
You're trying to say that you're smarter than Stephen Hawking? You went to Pierce College. You were in the bottom 10% of your class. You can't even develop photos right because look at your badge. But he can apparently, this is basic.
Right.
This is basic
Right.
shit.
Again, it comes back to non-answer. He does not answer the question. He distracts and he deflects.
Yeah,
Deflects
this is
the question.
classic deflection.
Yeah.
Classic
And,
deflection.
So
this is why I say he's like Roundtree.
yes.
So when Roundtree would speak, he would use fancy schmancy terms, and he knew enough words. His vernacular was worked in such a way it made him sound like he really knew quantum physics and all this other shit. But you ask him a specific question, and he's a hot mess express. The same thing is with Lazar, in that he's using words like elements and gravity and dimensions and all this other shit, and he's putting them in sentences where it's just like, ooh, he's smart, he's intelligent. I'm just a dumbass because it's over my head and below my knees.
Right.
When in actuality, he probably don't even know what the shit he's saying either. You know, he's just like words, 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 and then he ends it with a, well, so.
I need to clip that out just to be a little video. Just put it at the end of everything that I do.
Perfect.
Where I'm like, yeah, fuck. Instead of saying fuck you, I'm just gonna put that clip in there. Like,
I do that all the time. Or
but you're right. It's
Right,
word,
right.
it's word salad. It's very much word salad where they understand that the general public is not, well, to be totally blunt, the general public is science illiterate.
Yeah.
So you can say a lot of bullshit and get away with it because if you're confident in what you're saying, most people will look at that. Yeah, they won't question it.
They'll say, "Oh, wait, he's way smarter than I am, so
he knows what he's talking about. Holy shit! Look at him go. He's talking. She's saying things like." She's stringing words together and not hesitating. There's no ums or in her in the way she talks. Whatever. There's that confidence level where it's presented as such, and you take it as at face value and say, wow, you know, they're confident, they're not hesitating, they're spewing out this stuff. They must know what they're talking about. And I think this is what Bob gets away with, especially in the early years, in the early interviews, because he was able to say it with such fluid motion, you know, that it didn't really take him too much because he rehearsed this story. So he spewed it out. It was accepted and therefore became part of the pop culture of the ufology community. Right.
But there's one little glitch, Bob, Pimp Daddy. And that was with the advent of the internet, a lot of things, previous articles are now digitized. So it's, you know, I followed your nerd steps, and I found in May of 1989, about the time that you went public, maybe a month before, Scientific American, damn that journal, they published an article on hypothetical elements in the vicinity. Back in those ancient pre-internet days, you know, everyone was reading the same magazines, all you nerds. And, you know, this is probably where he got the idea of 115. It would not be a stretch because he doesn't really say much, but what he does say is regurgitated in there.
Yes.
He just regurgitated. But then, go ahead.
We see that a lot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, we do see that a lot. We see that with our experience with Roundtree, where he regurgitated stuff from Wikipedia. And we see it here. Like everything that he allegedly predicted that
or identified.
Well, I mean, in science, when you can predict something and it comes to be, that seems to have more weight. That has a lot more weight because, like, you predicted element 115 would be a stable element. Unfortunately, in his case, he fucked up. It's not a stable element. It's very unstable.
Of like
0.025
something.
seconds. Yeah. But when you make these predictions and they come to fruition, it seems to be more credible. So I think what Bob Lazar was doing was he was looking at the literature at the time, or a couple years before he was making these predictions, and he was banking on them.
Right.
So, like the article, I think that you mentioned here, it does mention 115. It also mentions 109.
Yeah, these are all hypothetical elements with
at the time.
At the time.
Yes.
Now, there are some people are saying that, the Moscovian, which is the one that was discovered in 2003 by the Russians, and it was actually also some American physicists in Tennessee, believe it or not. It is drastically different from what he was claiming, because that is actually odd. It has such a short half-life. It's completely useless. They've only been able to recreate it at the time. I think it was like 3 or 4 times, and then it's automatically absorbed into another element. So it's actually used for neutronium. I don't know. Science word element, insert here. I'm too
insert here.
But it's he banks on the fact that the majority of people aren't going to read that. He banks on the fact that now people are like, but there is an element 115. Yeah. Yeah, it's called my ass. But
how's that beer doing? Keep drinking.
Yeah. So he's just like, oh yeah, this validates me. This validates me. It doesn't validate you, Bob, because they're two different things. And you basically plagiarized Scientific American and tried to pass it off like it was your own. We know other people that have done this. You're not the first. You're probably not going to be the last. The only difference is we catch you now,
And I think that's the big thing. I mean, when these claims came out, again, 1989, and then 1990, 1991, 92.
Yeah, it's almost 30
these
years.
Are,
30 years
as
ago.
far as, when I looked it up, I mean, because I wasn't sure, but when I looked it up, I found that the first, oh shit, I forgot I don't have my notes, but 93, I think 91 and 93 was when the internet went public. 91, I believe, when it was officially public, and then 93 was when it was starting to become popular in households. So you're talking 3 to 4 years after these claims. And aside from the fact that his claims didn't mention anything about global interaction like this, like telecommunication, like where we were so instantaneous, but before that, you could get away with this shit. Because it would take too long. It would take too much work to track down all of your claims.
Right.
Now we can do it within a couple hours. Easy. I mean, if you're really intent on it, yes. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I was able to verify, you gave me, and I was able to go verify it within hours. Easy. It's
just people don't want to do the homework because it's a lot easier to be like Bob. So, I mean, let's think about what he just did. Yeah, Bob, he claimed that he identified 115. But remember what I just read to you, what he said. He's not sure if it's 114, but it's right in there.
Oh, my God.
But if you're the one who identified it, Bob.
You would know the fucking number.
Right. If you were the first to identify a brand new element, you would remember which one it was.
And all the characteristics that he applied to that are not what we found.
Correct.
Also, the big claim was that he said that you could not synthesize it. And that's what we did. That's how we discovered it. Right? That's exactly how we discovered it. So, debunked. Completely
Absolutely.
Debunked.
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm on board with the science behind it. Where, yes, you can have an element that several isotopes come into play, and you could have maybe a stable one, unstable one. I'm not a scientist. I understand what's going on. I understand different ingredients going into it. But when he stated firmly, flatly, solidly that you could not synthesize this, and I'm really impressed that I said that twice without fucking that word up.
Synthesize.
That you could not do that on Earth. And in reality, that's exactly what we did the first time it was discovered. Blows him away. He's done. He's done.
So another thing that he claimed was apparently he had been dropped from the program, or after he'd been fired, let go. His reasons for being let go varied. First off, he had the best 1 week of employment in the history of jobs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But he doesn't remember the cafeteria.
Or half the shit. Because, and I get it, Pimp Daddy. You were under a lot of pressure. You had to get security, and while you were waiting for that, you had to read over 100 different documents on clandestine operations and top secret security stuff on aliens. Then all of a sudden you get this dream job and you're flying here and there, being shuffled in and out on buses, working alone, installing satellite dishes at the same time as discovering a brand new element and explaining to possibly the most brilliant minds in America how gravity works and what the fuck they're looking at. By the way, you're all disorganized, and then out, you're done, and you only made $900 something for it. I get it. A little peeved, a little frustrated. So I can get that you don't understand. My question is, you once said that in Rachel in 1993, you said element 115 was in private hands. But I thought you were on a military installation. So define private. And if it was this precious, why would the government entrust it to this antimatter reaction, mind you, to sit in a private, like a citizen's hands? But then you kind of allude to, I might have took some without saying I took it. And then if you watch the Netflix documentary, Jeremy Corbell says, hey, while he's recording the conversation, says, hey, nobody will know about this conversation that we're having as he's recording it. Did you steal element 115? Bob's reply was, the end. So you don't know what he said, but it alluded to him saying, yep, I did. Because then all of a sudden you have George Knapp calling Jeremy Corbell, oh my God, Bob's being raided by the FBI. Then Jeremy alludes to the fact they raided his house the day after we had this private conversation because they were probably afraid he has element 115.
Exhausting.
All right. So I want to pause here and backtrack a little bit. I'm going to answer a question first. I want to get Brian Dunning. Yeah, Mel is awesome. There you go. No.
Oh.
So brief introduction.
Hi, Brian. I am Mel. I'm one of the founders of Military Veterans Paranormal. I'm really nosy. I do a lot of research into things. I'm not into ufology, but our team did a podcast, and our first season was on ufology, and we came across this gem named Robert Scott Lazar, aka Pimp Daddy Bob.
And what's your academic background?
Huh?
What's your academic background? What's your credentials?
I went to UCLA and Austin Peay State University. I have 2 bachelors in history and political science, and I have my master's in history and American history, military history with a specialization in security studies.
And you have something in journalism?
I did have a background in journalism. I did work for the press for many years, and then I joined the military, which I retired from. And then I got my paralegal license. I was a combat medic in the Army, and then I became a licensed paralegal as a civilian, and now I'm in social work.
And you're just fucking awesome. I love you.
And I'm not a nice person, apparently. I offend people and hurt these things called feelings.
Sorry,
Oh
that
my
was
God.
awesome.
Oh, I just, my knee-jerk reaction is like, fuck your feelings.
I love your facial expression,
your
Mellanie. You're awesome.
I want to touch on. I don't think I can answer this completely, but for Jade Kitten, who had a question about 1 of 15, yes,
she's confused. She
so
doesn't
in plain
understand it.
English, I'm not going to venture to pretend that I know what I'm talking about, but I know that on the periodic table, elements are defined by the number of protons in a given atom. So that means that element 115 has 115 protons in that atom. And the way that they made it, the scientists that synthesized it, because it's not naturally occurring, at least on this planet,
Right.
we don't have it naturally occurring. We have to actually make it. So
And it's useless.
and yeah. And as far as I know, like I can't get into too much here, but I believe it has a half-life of 0.225 seconds, which means like it's going like that.
It's gone like
and it drops down to element
longer
114
than 115.
Yeah. So it's an element that we can create, but as far as I know, and as far as I've read, just in the past week, there is no use for it right now.
Correct.
There is nothing. It's we created it. We were able to.
Not we. The Russians.
The Russians. That's why it's called Moscovian.
Moscovian.
Yes.
Moscovian.
Because it was named after where it was created.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Moscovian, it has 115 protons in it. It was a now I'm fucking it up because I'm thinking about it too much. Element, and it has no practical use for now. So it might change in the future with more research. Definitely something might happen, but the way Mr. Lazar described it, no, it's not.
So Bob wanted to claim that he's the one who discovered it back before they were able to synthesize it. They didn't synthesize it until 2003. He made these claims back in 89 that there's this mysterious element 115, and it's the fuel that powers these alien spacecraft that he's working on, that he has to reverse engineer, not knowing in the future that they were actually, and he was adamant, they're never going to be able to make this. This is not something that man can create. Right. But it turned out in the future, it was like,
basically, I think what happened is that he read a report. He read an article that was based on element 114 that described a lot of hypothetical information, like a cloud of stability around element 114. And he applied all of these features, these elements, if you will, to element 115, where it was already predicted that these elements would be discovered or synthesized.
Right.
So it wasn't anything new. It was on track to be discovered or made. So he took the leap and said, oh, you know what? This hasn't been discovered yet. It's not part of the periodic table. I'm going to say, yes, the fuel source is element 115, which has it's a stable element. It does all this wondrous things because it's a heavy element and it doesn't naturally occur on this planet. Therefore, it's alien. Therefore, we don't know the characteristics. Therefore, I can make up any shit that I want to, and you're never going to know.
Right.
So that's how I see it. And I guess that's the simplest way I can explain it, is that he took elements from other stories, other reports, incorporated it into his prediction, and then ran with it,
Pretty much.
basically. Yeah. All right.
He wanted to be something special.
Yes.
So he used fancy schmancy science words, read some science magazines, stole that information, tried to pass it off to the general public as like, oh, I'm brilliant, I got this shit. Not ever realizing that this thing called the internet would be invented and he would get caught. But by the time all of this, like, if you just look up Bob Lazar, he's got a following, people who are diehard that he's telling the truth. They're making movies. He's speaking at conferences, conventions. He's had books written about him. He loves that limelight. So there are people who aren't putting the 2 and 2 together and don't realize the actual facts of the matter. They're taking a lot of little things out of context. Like where I was going with that. Let me go back to my story. So you got George Knapp calling this producer, saying his house is being raided.
Oh, this is yes.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
Okay.
So wait. So they're filming this documentary
Netflix.
for Netflix,
which is not on Netflix. Now you have to rent it on Amazon.
Oh,
Bob.
Let's not even include Netflix yet because it's still being filmed. So it's being filmed. It's a documentary. And during filming, the company that Bob Lazar owns, which is what?
Nuclear scientists, some bullshit.
Wait.
I know it's got nuclear in there.
It is
nuclear science.
No, that's not it. Wait, I have it here.
It's coming.
So it's United Nuclear Scientific Supplies.
Told you it had some nuclear something in science in there.
Whatever. Got it. All right.
Gets raided by the FBI.
Right.
Yes. Which they're there to conveniently film everything going on.
Yep.
So,
and what was it? Something, I can't remember the month, but it was like the 19th of some month in
So we're talking
2017.
2017. Okay. I have a different I'm sorry. I have a different criminal report against them.
Oh yeah. That
So
one's a good one. That's the pandering one.
Wow.
I have to get to the right one because there's several.
There's
several. Yes.
That one's the one for pandering. He was a pimp, Jade. If you're just getting on, he was a pimp.
This is an 06. So I think this is for the illegal fireworks.
Oh, yeah, he has several.
Yeah. So the one you're talking about, they're filming.
Mm-hmm. So
they get raided, and the idea is that they're coming in because Bob Lazar alluded to stop subliminal messaging people. Stop it, producer Donna.
Sorry.
So Bob Lazar alluded to the fact that he might have stolen element 115 from there. So what really happened, what they were really there for was what?
So his company was selling thallium on the internet. You could buy it. Now, thallium is used in poisoning. It's odorless, tasteless, has no color. Okay. There was a murder case up in Michigan in which it was thallium poisoning to kill someone. And they discovered that the person had bought thallium from Bob's company.
Oh.
So Bob and Jeremy Corbell, the producer of the documentary, they were talking via phone on the 18th. The 18th. And Jeremy Corbell asks Bob, did you steal element 115? And Bob answers, but they garble what he says. So it sounds like, Bob, this is private. It's between you and me. Did you steal element 115? And then Bob goes, Jeremy. The very next day, the FBI raids Bob's company. not his house, his company. But when you look at the police report, what Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are on the phone, and they put it out, the way that they said it was, we had this conversation, and the very next day, right after we talked about element 115, his house was raided by the FBI.
Yes.
Was the government trying to find element 115? Were they tapping his phones? And they talk, him and George Knapp, they're like, Bob's house is being raided right now. What, dude? Are you for real? They're going back and forth like that. If you look at the actual police report, the search warrant was issued the day before up in Michigan because it's connected, his company's connected to this murder case. It was executed the day after because guess what? They had to get the feds involved. They bum rushed this thing and they were able to get it done. It's pretty, is it coincidence? Yeah, motherfuckers. Sometimes that shit happens.
Right.
Yeah.
But the evidence speaks for itself. It had nothing to, they didn't even know there was a documentary being done.
Right.
They just knew that there was a murder up in Michigan. But the documentary makes no note of that anywhere.
There's also the propaganda angle where they're like
Propaganda or propaganda?
That's what I mean.
Ganda.
The angle where it's like so many agents were there. There were so many people, and they don't realize, like, okay, we're dealing with a chemical company.
Right.
It's a company that deals with a lot of chemicals, a lot of elements. Yes.
Even radiation, uranium, they sell that shit.
They're dealing with chemists that are coming in to test everything to make sure, hey, what are we dealing with here? And from what I was gathering, it almost sounds like Bob Lazar had purchased a hobby kit from the early 1950s, 1960s that did include harmful elements.
Yes.
It did have, it really had bad shit in it.
Wow.
Yes.
I really try. I've been trying to get these for
They
years.
no longer sell them, but
Years.
I will
Yes.
tell you, Kenny, my brother had the same chemistry set.
God,
Wow.
I want one so bad.
You could have
Just to
mixed
have
this,
it.
and they used to come in these little jars. They'd be really sealed, and I remember once he mixed just a little bit of two different whatever it was, and it made a fire.
Wow.
Like a big one, like
Yeah, I mean, you could. I guess most people don't understand. The general public doesn't understand when you go back to the 1950s, 1960s, and you look at the chemistry steps. Chemistry
Steps.
You are never making my drinks again.
Sorry, guys.
The chemistry.
that came out my nose, man.
I gotta get into my science mode. The chemistry sets
Steps.
that were available for purchase, sometimes through comic books, you could buy with chemicals and elements that were radioactive. You could buy this shit. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, it was the 80s. My brother had it.
Buy uranium. You could buy this shit.
They
And it was
didn't
like,
care.
holy shit, you can do this. And so from going into this, going down the rabbit hole, I found that Bob Lazar was able to purchase one of these kits, and that was the main topic. It was one of these hobby kits that he had purchased from somebody that had died, and like a relative was selling it, getting rid of it, and it had these elements in it, had this poisonous substance.
Thallium.
Yes, that I think was eventually sold to the guy that used it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was part of this murder thing. I mean,
murder, massive, and because the feds get involved because he crossed state lines.
Yes,
he mailed it. This is how smart this Caltech MIT graduate is. He mailed this substance through the United States Postal Service.
Wow.
So it becomes federal case at that point. They have jurisdiction. But also, it's 2017. Anytime you're starting to deal with chemicals, and some of them can be used in bombs. We live in an age of terrorism. They will take that shit absolutely serious.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that he was being raided because of he stole element
technology.
115 and UFO technology. They didn't give a shit. They were more, I mean, this is murder or an act of terrorism. And there was, his company actually was involved in a court case. The government went after his company, not because of element 115, but because of the shit that they were selling.
Yes. And I mean, not just once. I mean, these are complaints from an earlier case against his company. So there's a lot of problems with this. So I mean, we should start wrapping it up because we're like a half hour overtime. But like, so all the pillars that Mr. Lazar is building his story on.
No. He's not worthy enough to be given a mister.
No. Let me explain. This is what I refer to people as when I don't have any respect to them.
I will refer to him as Pimp Daddy Bob.
Okay.
Pimp Daddy Bob.
So, all right, I'll follow your lead. So, Pimp Daddy Bob.
Yeah, because that is real.
Yeah, Pimp Daddy Bob.
I stand corrected. All the pillars that he has built this story on has crumbled.
Right.
They have crumbled under investigation. Good, solid investigation. His credentials, his education, his work employment, his badge, his W-2, his
own words,
ideas, his claims of discovery, all have failed under basic scrutiny.
Yeah.
Basic.
Adding all of this shit together. I implore people, again, as we said in the very, very beginning, there's a lot of different puzzle pieces that are nothing but red flags. If you just take the time to gather them all, put them in a box, line them all up, and they start fitting together, you will see the real picture. And that is that Bob Lazar sucks big, giant donkey balls, and he's a dude.
And little turds make a mound.
Yes.
Make
all his little turds
make a
add up to a big pile of shit.
And Kenny and I just swept him in one big giant mound of horseshit.
Boom.
The end.
The show has come full circle.
Thank you, New York. Stay sexy, San Diego.
Wow. Okay.
There's the little wave.
So yeah, I mean, it's there's other stuff that we didn't get into. Maybe we'll get into it in a future episode. But I mean, once the pillars are kicked out from underneath you, it's very hard for me to give you any kind of credibility whatsoever.
Right. Right. Except for his pimp daddy status.
And even without what stuff that we didn't talk about, watching his interviews, seeing how he's reacting, seeing how he responds.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like
I don't buy it.
I am no expert, but I think I do have skills in determining whether people are lying to me or not. Whether they are looking for information that they thought about before, or if they're trying to retrieve information from a earlier memory. Everything he did was telling me he was lying. He was making it up. I didn't find any truth in
our podcast. We do discuss that because at the time, the way we run our show is that we do our independent research and then we don't talk about it until we're recording. And so there were several people that really did believe Bob Lazar's story. People who have been following him and has even read his book and all these other books on him. And they start hitting me with some of this stuff, and it's like, oh, let's talk about this. Let's get into that. And we talk about his meekness, about him. He didn't want to be in the public eye. He tried to shy away from it, right? But I don't want anybody to think.
Let's talk about that.
What?
let's touch on that, because he keeps saying, and I've seen him in several interviews where he says, "I don't want to be in the public eye. I don't want the attention."
Then why do you keep doing interviews? He was in,
shit. Yes.
He's been in. He got a dose of it when he was first written about with his stupid fucking bike.
Yep.
With his bling, bling, and his little rocket on the back. Yep. That's when he got a taste of it, because then he did another article about the hot rod, Los Alamos monitor. Then, let me come out with this. And who am I going to talk to? George fucking Knapp. Really, dude? Okay. First, you're going to be.
There is a progression where he has the bike. The bicycle is the first one. Then it goes to the Honda Civic, which. Honestly, Honda fucking Civic? Honestly? Really? Stop it.
Make it a jet.
Don't forget his particle accelerator in his bedroom.
And then
stop that nugget.
Then he went to the Corvette. He had a Corvette where he did that, where he had the particle accelerator in his backyard, where he claimed to make all the fuel for his Corvette, which is bullshit. It would take way too long for him to make fuel for that Corvette. So no, the science doesn't add up. And then, you keep building. He kept building and building and building on the story. Even though he doesn't have the evidence or data to support it, he was still building upon it. And if you're part of the general public that has a belief in this, but is also science illiterate, you went along with it.
Right.
You did. Right. And you got sucked up into it. And it was just a progression. And it was just, it's sad, honestly, from my perspective. I think he wanted. Yes, John.
The publicity. I think he has delusions of grandeur. Yeah. I think just like Roundtree, he wanted to be somebody.
Right.
Yes.
And so it just spiraled. And if he didn't want this publicity, why did you speak at conventions consistently? Yes. Why did you consistently do radio shows, talk shows? You did the Yukon circuit. Come on, dude. You wanted it. And anybody who's got, just the intellect of belly button lint can see that you like it. So, honestly, let's just call a spade a spade.
If you didn't want it, you would not pursue it. If you didn't want it, you would say no.
Right.
And that's it.
You'd say, my name is Bennett. I ain't in it. But instead, you decided,
so much.
Let me go ahead and do this documentary. Let me go ahead and, go on the Joe Rogan show.
And you know what? Even that show, I like Joe because he's a fighter. That's why I like him. That's it. But yes, even during that show, when you pay attention to the details, you know that they went out to dinner beforehand. They went out to dinner and they met up and they talked well before the show. And that Bob Lazar set up the whole migraine excuse beforehand. Like he was developing this migraine. And every time he was backed into a corner where he could not answer a question, it went to the migraine.
Right.
It was an excuse. It was an escape. It was not an answer. It was an escape. That tells me, with all the other bullshit, yes, it is total bullshit. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Because people want to believe. Because I think a lot of us are just like, okay, we've got the smarticles. We know we're not the only ones in the universe. And this is maybe something to validate that. Okay, here's this guy who's going through all. It's like your shirt said, I want to believe.
I want to believe.
Yeah.
But
and Journey told us, don't stop believing.
I want I want evidence. I want good
A
data. I
lot of
want
people
good.
are seeing him as he's got it.
He's
Look
not.
at everything he's gone through. This is a government conspiracy, government conspiracy, government conspiracy, because that's what's popular nowadays. And it satisfies that itch. Well, you know what?
It's a Bob Lazar conspiracy. That's what it is.
Yeah. So
It's his. So
it
yeah.
is what it is. Just know this, Pimp Daddy Bob. I'm on to you, fuck.
Pimp Daddy Bob.
I am so glad that we had a chance to do this because
this was excellent.
I love your show.
Mhm.
And I definitely recommend anyone, if you're into podcasts, go listen to Military Veterans Paranormal podcast on this. But I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this because like this is something that's come up so much, and
Right.
I've never had the time because it's. You probably understand this. It's a week to week. Like
Yeah.
whatever topic comes up, whatever article comes up, whatever deadline comes up, that's what you're focusing on. So
Right.
when this came up, when we started talking about this, and it's like, oh shit, you know what? Yeah, I booked you for tonight, and I was like, shit, I really gotta know my shit because you know what, and I'm gonna totally pad your ass here and say I totally love what you do. You are one of the few people that I would say that if you came to me and told me whatever, I would trust it at face value. And there was probably like 3 people on the entire planet that I would do that with. But I know we are pretty much the same with how we research. And even though that, like in the beginning of the show, I said that I went back and looked at everything that you sent me. It's not because I doubted you. It's
I
because
expect you to, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, if I
Exactly.
didn't, I wouldn't send it to you.
Yes.
I expect you to.
I would expect the same thing, but I wanted to be able to say, hey, look, you know what? She did this. I verified it. So whatever, I don't know whatever credibility that I might have, but I looked into it. I couldn't find anything that refuted what you said. So yeah, you're one of the few people that I would actually take what you tell me at face value because I know that I know that I'm going to check your shit and
That's
make
right.
sure.
And I
Because
expect you to, though.
if I give you shit, I expect you to check my shit to make sure that I know what I'm talking about.
And you'll know that I know that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we know.
But that's my thing is that, and I think that's what, and I don't want anybody thinking that I go after people because Kenny, I think you can vouch for me, and you too, Donna. You both have known me for several years now, actually longer than that, for shit's sake. My God, we're going on 10 years, believe it or not. But
old.
I know. Here's the thing about me is I have this uncanny ability to put aside my preconceived notions, put aside my biasness or whatever, and go into something completely blind. As if, I'm going to start from scratch. I will have no bias. I'm going to be completely objective. And I think a lot of that has to do with how I used to report, how I used to do research. And I don't like someone telling me what I should think. And I don't want to tell anybody else what they should think. I want the facts too. I believe that documentation tells a story. There's more truth to that than what somebody can say. But I also don't believe in confirmation bias. And I think that's something that plagues the paranormal community, the ufologist community, is that people go in there with, they want to prove Bob's telling the truth, or they want to prove that Bob's lying.
Right.
All right, Bob, I will let you restore the name Bob to its proper place. But that's how I approach my research. And I'm one of those people, and I know, Kenny, you are just like me in this, in that from the get-go, I publish and I will share what I find. I'm not afraid to. I want people to see this. So I had no real feelings towards Pimp Daddy Bob. I thought, okay, he could have gotten better glasses, needs a better haircut. He's probably some goober. These are grandiose stories, but hey, this was a pretty good documentary. It intrigued me until I started finding his little turds. And then it was like, oh, fuck you, Pimp Daddy. Gator don't play no shit.
Yeah.
And so I had to go right up in the hole. Just
Right.
And I think for both of us, it's not we look for the truth. We're not looking to prove like whether he's wrong or right, or whether we are right or wrong. It's what is the truth, and whatever that may be, we still ask ourselves questions like I'm always asking myself, am I being biased? Am I going about this with an agenda? Am I looking at this from a too skeptical point of view? Do I need to step back? And I always step back. You always do, because you have to. You have to say, like, am I being a dick about this?
Oh, see, I never asked myself, are you being a dick? Because I know I usually am. And
well,
I don't care. I don't. Just
I mean
my bags of fuck. They're empty.
When I say being a dick, I mean being unfair. So I don't think you're being unfair. I think the research that you do is verifying or refuting the documents or facts that are being presented.
Yeah,
and you're saying, hey, you know what? You said this, but your documents that back this up say otherwise. There's something wrong here. So that's what we do. That's exactly
what we do. That's
what we do, motherfuckers.
That's right. And if you don't like it, Bob, shove it right up the bunghole. Right here.
Oh my God. I'm not going to monetize this one. I'm not going to at all.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. It's cool. I'd
Sorry,
rather have the information.
Bob Lazar, that we're going so long. You didn't have to watch it.
No, it's all right. The last 2 weeks have been 3 hours. We've been, you know what? When you get into the information like this, I don't want to stop. I want to keep going. And I think that's what we both share. You know, we find that investigation and we start digging, and it's the chase. You know, you're chasing down the truth. You want to know what's really going on. And when you get that lead, it's like, oh shit, I'm on to something. Something's building. I gotta go to the end. I gotta figure it out. And I feel that. So I get it. And I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate the research that you've done. I like the work that you've done. I even though I started going into it and I verified, I would say estimate, I verified 80% of everything that you sent me, because I just didn't have time to go.
Yeah, I did send you a lot of shit. Sorry.
You know, there was a lot. But
I mean, and that's, you know, what's crazy is that, and I told Kenny this, is that here's just some of what I found.
Right.
Yeah. It's good time.
And this was something that I was not expecting to do. So I don't mind.
Well, you know, when it's claims or something that is so big, and when you're looking into UFOs, because I'm going to admit, I'm really not that into, I've never have been. I've read about it, you know, things like this and that. I like the X-Files. His name constantly comes up. And so he's a cornerstone into what a lot of these ufologists believe and what they're banking on and stuff. So you have to go through it all. You can't just breeze through this. And if I did, then that to me would be faulty research. So if somebody has a problem with as much as I dug up, well, suck my butthole, because I don't really care.
But you're right. I mean, that's exactly how I approach it. It's like, all right, I'm balls deep into this.
Right.
If I'm going to investigate it, if I come to the point where I'm looking, and this is a question I get often, is how do you determine what you look into?
Right.
It's like, all right, is there enough information here? And once I start looking into it, if there's enough information, forget it. It's the
Right.
rabbit hole and me on the diving board going whoa, right down. I'm totally committed.
I'm the same way.
That could be days or weeks or months.
I mean, you know me, at one place, I researched for almost a year.
Yes.
And then there was one dude that destroyed him. We had fun with that.
We did.
So yeah, but it's
Yes.
the topic, if it presents itself, if someone, I don't select our topics on our podcast. This season it was somebody else that was running it. Next season we have someone else. They just give us a topic and then I'll say, okay, let me do my homework.
Yeah.
And then we all come back. So it is what it is.
Awesome.
Sorry you don't like this, Bob.
But it is what it is,
Daddy
like,
Bob.
there you go. Hey, Bob Lazar, if you're watching and you want to counteract or whatever, if you want to comment on what we're doing,
On
I will.
that was said
You
tonight.
are invited onto this show. I will get
have
Mellanie back.
Chat with you, Bob.
Yes, we
Come
will
talk with
the
us.
three of us will come on. You
Mhm.
can explain, as long as you give direct answers to our questions and not sidestep them.
Yeah.
You are more than welcome to come on.
Yeah. And you know what? He could even do it from home, lest he get a migraine. Turn the lights off,
There you
Bob.
go.
Talk
All right.
softly.
So, Mellanie, where
Yes.
can we find you if we want more information about you or your team or whatever?
We are on Facebook, Military Veterans Paranormal. We also have the website, and we are on Spotify and Apple iTunes. What is that? Apple Tunes?
iTunes.
Yeah,
iTunes.
that. And you can always, if you want to get information from us or if you have questions, you can hit us up at questions@militaryveteransparanormal.com.
Awesome. And I'm real quick. You're going to hang around for my announcements. You might want to go to the side a little bit. There you go. So quickly, announcements. Look at her. There she is.
Go, sweetie. I love it. Oh, it's perfect.
August 20th and 22nd, I'll be in Gettysburg. Myself and Donna Divine Donna.
Divine
sorry.
Donna will
I
be
stand
in
corrected.
Gettysburg.
We'll be in Gettysburg for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. We're both there. We're both going to set up tables. She's going to have her Lucky Tiki Creations set up for her crafts. Oh my God. I'm going to have my Skeptical Help booth set up so that if you have questions you want to ask a skeptic, by all means, come by. September 25th.
Well, hey, hold on.
What?
Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. If anybody wants to dunk Kenny.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. I was supposed to pause for this.
Kenny's in the dunk tank.
I am in the dunk tank. So I have also volunteered to be in the dunk tank every single day.
For the Gettysburg Bash.
So if you want to come out and dunk a skeptic, or
if you can't make it out to Gettysburg, Kenny and I thought about it and said, hey, if you send us the money,
yes,
Donna here, Divine Donna, will practice her throwing arm and practice to dunk Kenny, and we will record it as a K&D Adventures video showing
this is
your
your
money
donation.
being spent.
This is Donna throwing and missing.
Trying to dunk Kenny. So if you have any, if you want to donate and you can't make it out, hit me up, message me on Facebook, me or Kenny, and we'll work it out. And I think K&D Adventures will actually videotape me.
Videotape?
Video?
Really? How
I'm
archaic
sorry.
are you?
Whatever.
Wow.
We will
Digital
video.
age. We've discovered aliens in
Me
S4.
dunking Kenny with your money.
All right. So
That's what I'm saying.
basically, yeah. If you want to contact Donna, please contact Donna via Facebook. And if you want to donate, the donations actually go to the donations of the conference, which is the Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors, which is separate from the Wounded Warriors Foundation. And it also Heroes for Hire, which is costumed people that go out to hospitals and entertain kids. They're a really good organization. I talked to the guy that runs it not last year, but like 2 years ago when we were allowed to attend conferences.
Right.
Awesome guy. Has a Batman costume, like the full
the
Christian,
full suit.
Christian Bale Batman costume and the Christian Bale Batmobile. Freaking awesome.
Yeah, he picks the kid up in his Batmobile
except
and
that he wouldn't let me sit in it. So, but definitely talk to Donna. You can set that up. So September 25th, if we are still able to do conferences, because unfortunately the numbers are going up and there's problems. So if we're still allowed, September 25th in Woodbridge, New Jersey, we'll be in at the Power Unity Conference. We're both going to have
tables.
We're both going to. I'm so fucking drunk.
We're both going to have
booths set up.
Yes.
Donna will have her Lucky Tea Creations. I will have my Skeptical Help booth set up. You're not allowed to make drinks for me anymore. You are not allowed. And we're not allowed to go 3 hours on a show anymore.
It's 2 weeks in a
Holy
row.
shit.
It's not my fault, people.
It is your
it's
fault.
not, Mel.
I had nothing to do with it.
Finally,
I'm
October
a
9th
victim of society.
in Norristown, PA, is the Selma Mansion Psychic Fair. Donna will have a table set up.
Yes.
Her booth will be set up. I'll be helping her set up.
And Kenny
and
will be
just
harassing
wandering
everybody
around,
else.
bothering the shit out of psychics all over the place. So
you lost me at Para Unity and.
Oh my god. All right.
Hey, we gotta make money somewhere.
Thank you, Mel. Stick around. Don't hang up.
Okay, I offend so many people. So if I offended you, you're welcome.
Too bad.
Mellanie, from all the comments, everybody loves you and they would love you on the show again.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll have you back.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, everybody. This is me on a regular basis. You can ask Kenny.
Yes, it is.
This is why I love having you on. This is what This is why you're my little sister.
Yeah,
you know, like
this is why we miss
are
you.
so much alike. Our research methods are similar. We expect the same things.
Right.
We don't get butt hurt when we fact check one another. I just love you. All right.
Well, Tiffany, I would totes have a drink with you too.
Totally.
Woo!
Totally. All
Me
right.
too.
So with that, I'm going to cue up my ending video. Mellanie, you stick around for a second.
I'm going to stick around.
Stick around. Everyone else, have a great weekend.
Yeah.
And remember,
Happy Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
never stop learning.
Yes.
And I'll see you next week.
Oh,
actually,
no, we won't.
Next week, we will not be doing a regular
No,
scheduled show.
that's right. No.
We will be in
no,
Gettysburg.
No.
Gettysburg.
Kenny the
Kelly.
Adventurers will be taping
So,
you guys dunk Kenny's ass.
I might do like an impromptu live show Friday night, but I'm not sure. We'll see. But other than that, see you later.
Love you guys.